We are starting the next session. Hello. Hmm. And the resource person is Anurekha Chari Madam, Dr. Anurekha Chari Madam, Associate Professor from Department of Sociology, School of Social Sciences, University of Hyderabad. Her academic qualification is she has postdoctoral fellowship in 2014-15. She did PhD, which is titled Citizenship, Development, Gender, a study of 3 microcredit programs. This PhD was done under Professor Sujata Patel Madam in 2008. Uh, sh- her teaching experience is she began in 2000, I think 2001. No? Yeah, 2001 from Department of Sociology's SPPU, and then now she is teaching at Department of Sociology, University of Hyderabad from 2018. Uh, she had she has big research experience. She's employed as senior faculty research in Indian School of Microfinance for Women, INMW Ahmedabad, affiliated to Self-Employed Women Association Seva. Uh, do you know this Seva organization? You must be knowing Ila Bhatt, who is expired some days before. Did you heard that? No, no one. Surprising. Okay. Then she has taught many courses. Nowadays, she is teaching academic writing, sociology of gender, community engagement uh, programs, changing Indian family research methods, etc. Uh, she has designed many courses in the universities, SPPU and Hyderabad University. Uh, Her publication, there is a huge list of publications. I cannot read this one, but I will just summarize. She has written many books chapters about 5, and only this way I could introduce her, because the introduction is I did not get my. Yeah, I got the link. Okay. Yeah. Occasional papers are 4, international book chapters are 5, and research journals are 7. And look, all these journals are reputed journals like EPW, Community Development Journals, and book reviews 2, conference proceedings 1, a Marathi article. She's also fluent in Marathi, and yeah, I know. रोजगार हमी योजना आणि जनसंघटनांची स्त्रीवादी चिकित्सा असा मराठीमध्ये पण लेख लिहिलेला आहे मॅडमनी. मराठी घरी बोलतात पण बरं का त्या. We professors, generally, we teachers, college teachers generally neglect one thing, that we don't write for students, and she has done that. She wrote on UGC's e-Pathshala program, and written 19 modules for that. This is a great work. Yeah, and she is working right now as in a project, post a project evaluation of Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana, SAGY, and she is evaluating this program is this project is evaluating Maharashtra and Goa in comparative manner. She has completed 10 research projects and research teaching fellowships. There are 11 research fellowships she has uh, done so far. She is invited fellow of UGC SAP, invited lectures, 2 state level lectures, 6 national level lectures, and 11 fellowships that I cover. International seminars, uh, seven seven guest lectures, seminar lectures, international lectures, and she's consultant at four uh, organizations, uh, and also training and many more. So I'm exhausted now. So, but but I will I will have a special introduction of her. So, and this is more important, I think. We are friends. We started working in a research project which was associated with रोजगार हमी योजना. रोजगार हमी योजना तुम्हाला माहिती आहे की महाराष्ट्राची एक महत्वाची योजना आहे होती. आज थोडा प्रभाव तिचा कमी झालेला आहे कारण मनरेगा आली ना. आणि त्या योजनेमध्ये आम्ही दोघांनी एकत्र एका प्रोजेक्टवर काम केलं आणि ससेक्स युनिव्हर्सिटीने IDS इन्स्टिट्यूट ऑफ डेव्हलपमेंट स्टडीज यांनी हा प्रोजेक्ट दिलेला होता. प्रोफेसर सुजाता पटेल या आमच्या गाईड होत्या आणि मी, विशाल जाधव, अनुरेखाचारी मॅडम आणि शाजी जोसेफ, आम्ही 4 जण या रिसर्च प्रोजेक्टमध्ये काम करत होतो. आणि जसे तुम्ही आत्ता शिकण्याच्या अवस्थेत आहात ना, तसं आम्ही थोडंसं पुढं मागे असे होतो. आणि या काळामध्ये आम्ही खूप शिकलो, फील्डवर गेलो आणि लिहायचं कसं, रिसर्च मांडायचा कसा, हे सगळं सगळं शिकलो. आणि त्यासाठी खूप परिश्रम केलेले आहेत आम्ही. या प्रोजेक्टच्या निमित्ताने आम्ही जे शिकलो तर ते आयुष्यभर आम्हाला उपयोगी पडेल असं असं संचित आम्हाला मिळालं. आणि तुम्हाला माहिती आहे की या सगळ्या प्रक्रियेत सुजाता पटेल मॅडम यांच्याबरोबर काम करताना की त्यांच्या अपेक्षा आमच्याबद्दल इतक्या मोठ्या होत्या की त्याच्यामुळं आम्हाला बऱ्याच वेळा रडावं लागलेलं आहे अक्षरशः. माहिती आहे, खूप रडलो आहे आम्ही, खूप खूप झगडलो आहे. आणि अशाच प्रकारच्या अपेक्षा आमच्याही तुमच्याबद्दल आहेत, तेव्हा तुम्हालाही रडावं लागणार आहे कधीतरी. ओके, ही इंट्रोडक्शन आहे. थँक्यू फॉर कमिंग ऑल द वे फ्रॉम हैदराबाद. थँक्यू व्हेरी मच मॅम. या, बाय. मी आपल्या विभागाचे उमेश शिंदे सर यांना विनंती करतो की त्यांनी अनुरेखाचारी मॅडम यांचं स्वागत करावं. फुलं काय म्हणतात, फुलं एक मॅडम, यू कॅन स्टार्ट युअर सेशन नाव. या, थँक्यू.
Okay, I just need maybe a glass of water. Hello. Hello. Yeah. Good morning, everyone, and thank you. I thank you, Professor Sanjay, for such a long introduction. I'm sorry, I was supposed to send like a brief one, but maybe I just wanted to hear about myself. I don't know. So I sent the long one. So Sanjay has told a lie that I'm not very fluent in Marathi. When I was teaching in Pune University, when I used to teach, my students used to correct me. But so I kind of handled myself. Like I speak Marathi at home because my husband is a Maharashtrian. I'm a Tamilian, Bengali, Odia put together. So Marathi is not my language. So my husband says, his name is Yogesh. He says that काही इम्पॉर्टंट बोलायचं असेल तर प्लीज हिंदीमध्ये बोल, because I there's a lot of misinterpretation that happens. So what I'll do is I'll speak majorly in English, and also explain wherever you think I need more explanation in however I know Marathi. Okay, so I don't claim it, but I'll try my best. So if you look at the schedule, which is like very very heavy, and I've just been told you're right from first years to masters, so some things may seem dense now. Like I remember that many of the lectures that we were, in Pune University Sociology Department, many of whenever the guest lectures used to come, it was compulsory, and we had to attend it, right? So half of the things just went beyond our like something, but the chai and the food was good, so we were there, and we had no choice. Yeah, I don't know, but at that time, attendance, the head will see whether you're attending or not. All this was that. So the signing was very important. So we used to hear, but what I realized over a time is that those things that we thought that we didn't understand at that moment later on made a lot of sense to us, right? So our brain is like a wonderful and a very interesting, and we don't know half of it. So many things, even if you don't want to hear Anurekha, but some things will just go to you. And maybe sometime in your life, some things that I've said, not all maybe, some things maybe make sense to you, right? So in that context, I will just share some of the ideas that I have. If you look at the schedule, there are two things that I'm supposed to deal with. One is the feminist theory part of it, like doing theory, and the second is doing feminist research, right? So these are like how do you engage with feminist methodology. So what I'm going to do is start Monday. I'm going to focus on like very quickly on theory, like on doing theory, right? I don't know about all of you, but for me, for a very long time, and this was since even 2-3 years back, I could say that मला असं वाटत होतं की थ्योरी आपण नाही करू शकत, राईट? सो थ्योरी इज लाईक दिस बिग पीपल दॅट वी रीड, कार्ल मार्क्स, big people. But I realized over time, and especially when I started teaching the course on academic writing, right? So this is a very interesting course, and then realized that somewhere over a period of time we have all been taught that we cannot write. I mean, you need to have a special mind to write, right? And writing is not for everyone. सगळ्यांना जमणार नाही. तुम्हाला काय माहिती आहे, तुम्हाला लँग्वेज पण माहिती नाही. बट बिलीव्ह मी, रायटिंग इज अ स्किल. म्हणजे जसं आपण कम्प्युटरमध्ये ते काय प्रोग्रामिंग शिकतो, इट इज ॲज सिम्पल ॲज दॅट. यू नीड टू हॅव सर्टन स्किल्स विच इज यू कॅन लर्न. And the same is doing theory. It's like whatever we are doing, and when we start thinking or when we are observing something, right? And for the last 3-4 years, my field has been the classroom. And among many of the publications that Sanjay shared, I think I'm most proud of the publication that I wrote with my students. It's on teacher-student relationship in a classroom with my master's student. It was one of the best work that I have done. I mean, I don't know about others, but I feel that was the best, because what we were doing is we were collaboratively thinking together. I mean, all of us as teachers, me as students, my students, were thinking about how to think about power in a classroom, right? So how do you negotiate power in the classroom? So what we were doing theory, right? So that is something I want to all of us to keep in mind, especially if you're thinking about doing research or building a capacity in terms of gender research and things like that. That theory is nothing which is like outside and we need to be, afraid of. It is within us, and it is the way we understand, right? And the first point is start of doing anything. म्हणजे तुम्ही काही पण रिसर्च सुरू केलं होता, it starts with you, right? I was really appreciative of all your questions and the way it came, because like for example, one of the questions was with regard to transgender, right? So unfortunately what has happened is whenever we are thinking, or the way gender has been theorized, it has been theorized as an binary of male and female, and it is not that. And what is also surprising is when we start questioning that binary, we just put a third alternative like transgender. But if you decode that gender, it is a wide spectrum. You have like so many other things. So there is this one book I would specially request you all to read, that is by Chanika Shah, edited, No Outlaws in the Gender Galaxy. That will show you among the range of identities that we had with regard to gender. And that has been the largest mistake of the feminist who has reduced gender to women. You see, it is not that, because women as such, for example, an upper caste woman who has a like a very privileged job like me, I am very powerful. right? If I have a government job and I come from an upper class, I come from an upper caste, I have a lot of power. So again, women are not a homogeneous category. Women are a heterogeneous, diverse, different category. So also all kind of gender. So gender exists in a wide spectrum, right? We are given our gender identity based upon our biological kind of, genitals and things like that. But it may so happen we may have a gender that has been assigned to us, but we may feel differently, right? So therefore there is, and today I may feel like a more like a man, tomorrow I feel more like a woman. So there's a lot of fluidity that is happening, and a lot of people have worked on it. And I was looking through your session. You have Geeta coming in, so I think that's a very interesting. I mean, she's very good. It's a joy listening to Geeta. I'm sure you all will also enjoy that. I mean, she's very good. So that is something that we need to understand, that anything that starts with our own self. And I would talk about other things, like, for example, we were talking about gender inclusiveness. It again comes from your questions, right? So, for example, when we were talking about gender inclusivity in our universities, the first thing that when we reopened after Corona was that all our bathrooms had this, uh, you know, what is it, comments by the students, like you have a male bathroom and a female bathroom. What about the gender diversity which is there, right? We were called out. We were known to be one of the excellent universities, but inside the university we were not inclusive, right? So, and it comes from where? It comes from when students or teachers who think differently, who believe that they are different, when they come and think about these spaces, they feel that, I mean, I have to be in the university for 6 hours, 7 hours, but I don't have a safe space to go when I need to go to the washroom, right? It is, where does it come from? It comes from your personal experiences. So theory is very very important, because what it does is that it takes फ्रॉम युअर ओन पर्सनल एक्सपिरियन्स, म्हणजे आपला स्वतःचा जे अनुभव आहे त्याला जेव्हा आपण सोसायटीमध्ये रिफ्लेक्ट करतो आणि आता आपल्याला माहिती आहे की म्हणजे व्हॉट इज दिस, व्हॉट इज दिस ओके आय एम फीलिंग एक्सक्लुडेड, बट वाय? वेन यू स्टार्ट bringing that question of why, you're doing theory, right? So that is something, remember, the moment you, this is a very very powerful word, why. Any questioning ki asa ka hoto, like why, when you start bringing in your personal experiences and putting it may not be like in terms of for example, just like a transgender, or it could be in terms of caste, it could be in terms of gender and caste, it could be in terms of class and caste, it could be anything, like for long, I mean, I think one of the student, you asked about the abortion rights, but for a very long time the kind of racial discrimination and gender discrimination that was happening in US, we were not aware of it. It came out with Black Lives Matter. I mean, we knew about it, but if you read the works of Bell Hooks, Patricia Hill Collins and all, you'll find out about how gendered and how racialized America is and was always, right? So this is something, when you ask the question why, you are started doing theory. So this is one of the things that I think you should keep in mind. So in any theory there are like 4 aspects, and from this I'll quickly move into feminists, right? One is the epistemology of it. What is that epistemology? I mean, these are big sounding words, epistemology, and like people throw, like teachers like us, epistemology, what do you think? It is just knowledge. Like, who is creating knowledge? Like, am I, just because I'm a PhD, what I say, does that make sense? And that is knowledge. But if it comes from your experience, is that not knowledge? So the whole theory or the dynamics of creating knowledge is epistemology. So who are we asking? Like, for example, if I want to know about caste, do I just go and talk to upper caste men and women and different, and ask about caste? They will have a different understanding, right? But if you go to, like, which was one of the major critique of M.N. Srinivasa's work, because there he was talking about caste, but he stayed in a particular area which was, the spaces are caste segregated spaces. So whom are you talking to? Whose knowledge do you think are important, right? For example, if you want to know about inclusion in the university, or hygiene and safety in the university, so are you just talking to students? Are you also talking to the non-permanent staff who come on the contract basis, right? Are we talking to them? Do we think that just because they don't have a degree, they don't have knowledge, right? So these all will have an impact on how you're doing research. Why? Because when you're framing your research questions, when you're framing your whom to ask, you have to think, whom do I ask these questions? Who can give the best answer to these questions, right? So there comes your epistemological questions, that who is creating that knowledge, and therefore which knowledge are we kind of inculcating, right? So that is something which is important. The second part of any theory is the ontology of it. That is the theory of whatever is coming in terms of the reality, right? How, what kind of theory are you making out of it, right? So for example, any experience can be understood in terms of different theories. So what theories are you taking to understand that reality? So that would be the third. A second, the third is the historical location, and I think Vaishali also talked about it. Like, the historical location of any of that reality plays a very important role. Like, for example, if I have to understand about the education system, like for example, I am now speaking in English, right? So if I have to understand the notion of English as a power, in terms of communication, I have to understand how did the whole education system started in India, what was the caste dynamics of it, who introduced the formal kind of education, who were accessing it. So we have to look at it in terms of historically also, like the way these things are growing, who are there. So we can't start from, if I have to know about education in 2022 and know about the classroom in 2022, I can't just start from today. I have to go back, I have to locate it historically, I have to look at Nashik as a region historically, I have to look at Maharashtra, then India. So historical location then becomes very important. And the fourth and the last part of doing theory is a set of prescriptions. Like, then you say that, okay, for doing this theory you need these kind of assumptions, and this will come, like when you, for example, when we say when the Marxists were talking about class, they were just talking in terms of the proletariat and the bourgeois, right? But when the Marxist feminists started coming up, they started talking about how the proletariat itself is divided again, right? So then, about what about the household work? So whether that work is considered work or not, right? So this becomes important. So what are these prescriptions that you're talking about? These then become very, very important. Why I said this, or why this is very important, because I always have seen that while I teach not only academic writing, but I also teach research methodology in my in Hyderabad, and this becomes a major challenge, because whenever we think of doing research, students always feel, and I used to feel since last, for a very long time, that we are meant for doing field work, right? But theory is not, आपल्याला जमणार नाही, हे माझं नाही आहे. But the thing is, the fact that we are doing research is the fact that we are doing theory, right? So please keep this in mind. Every one of us has a capacity of doing theory. We cannot divide it, and that dividing, and that is very binary divide. And doing theory and doing field work is together. It can't be separated, right? Of course, later on we'll have the skill on how to develop it. That's another matter, and that can be learned. But this understanding then becomes very important. The other thing is, you can stop me anytime you want, right? If you have a question, काय एक्सप्लेन करायचं असेल, काय स्पष्टीकरण द्यायचं असेल, तर प्लीज, one word, a good word, right? So this is something which is very important. So going quickly into the feminism theory and research, this is the title of this session, is that the first is in feminism, which I kept on repeating, is to emphasize your lived experiences. Our lived experiences, for example, if I want to do work on pedagogy, if I want to do work on classroom, my lived experience as a teacher is very important to understanding that classroom, right? I can't, hello, yeah. So that itself is very different, right? So that is something that we need to keep in mind. And the first question, or among the many questions that feminists ask, is the exclusion from the dominant avenues of knowledge making, which I just said, that who are excluded from knowledge, right? In terms of creating knowledge for a very long time. Like, I'm very happy to see such a mixed group here, right? But for example, how far back in the history it was that all of us could sit together in the class. And for example, this is still like a different, right? You all are sitting there, I'm sitting like up, right? So it makes easy for communication, but it does create a sense of hierarchy which is there. So this is also something that we need to keep in mind. um, and feminism, okay, now most of the things that I would be sharing does come from what feminists have dealt with the women's lives, right? But I have already made it clear that that was a major challenge that we never understood. Recently now we are talking about decoding gender and making it more diverse and all, but majorly earlier we were focusing on women's lives. So that is that kind of clarification I've already given. So important of women's lived experiences in the goal of how do you understand knowledge making, right? So that becomes very important. Like there is a very interesting article, or there's a very interesting book called, sorry, Rethinking Methodologies, right, which is edited by Kalpana Kanibaram and Padmini Swaminathan. In that there are very interesting set of articles. There is this one article by Ronit Chaudhary which is on masculinities. So he talks about how does his masculinity play out when he is on the field, right? And similarly, there was a student, I don't know whether he has joined, he was supposed to join, but Chandrakant Kite, he worked when I was in Pune. He worked on looking at women's transposition, like how असं ते म्हणतात ना असं कोणीतरी येतं पोझिशन बॉडीमध्ये पोझिशन होतो असं सगळं वर त्याचं काम होतं अँड ही talked about that how difficult it was for him when he went to talk to these women, because that is related to health, that is related to sexuality, that is related to menstruation, periods. हे सगळ्यांशी त्याचं खूप म्हणजे it is very connected. So he said, ma'am, when I go and ask about periods and all, it is very difficult. Like I'm a male young researcher, you're asking young women about your periods and how does have an impact. So then we had to change the way that he was doing field work, right? So masculinity, your caste, your language, all plays out in the creation of that knowledge, right? And we have to rework through that. And thinking about these questions is a core of doing feminist research. That many of us earlier, when we were doing research, we always used to think about that researcher is like an objective fellow guy, right? Like an objective researcher. Our caste locations, our language locations, काहीच impact करत नाही. आणि ते खोटं आहे. Ki the fact that, for example, there is this classroom, right? The moment I'm not in this class, the way you will engage would be very different from the moment I enter into the class. Okay. If you know I'm another participant, okay, you won't know that because you will, anyway, I don't look like very young, but the moment you know that I'm going to speak as a resource person, the dynamics of the classroom will change. Okay, this is what happens in a field. The moment you go into the field reality has already changed, right? तुम्ही किती केलं तरी reality तुम्ही capture करूच नाही शकणार. का नाही करू शकणार? Anybody? You are external, so then so what? What happens? Somewhat okay, but not completely. जवळ घेऊ का? Okay. Okay, I had a hand there. Of course, I mean, friendship is very special. I mean, but in terms of reality, like, for example, there is this reality. I mean, whatever that we have, when somebody enters into that, this is a field, right? So when somebody enters, and through questions you want to capture that reality, I am interested to know that what happens there. What is the dynamic there? Even if you say that, oh, I am this objective researcher, मी फक्त आलोय फक्त तुमच्याबरोबर प्रश्न विचारायला आणि ते माहिती घ्यायला. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yeah? Yes. Okay, made up reality. People get awkward. Okay, 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 okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. All of you are correct, right? There is no wrong answer. What all of you said was, anywhere when there are these all of you sitting together, you have created a reality of some sort, right? But which is not the absolute reality, because there is nothing like absolute reality, right? खरं is very contextual. माझ्यासाठी जे खरं असेल तुमच्यासाठी ते खोटं असेल आणि असू शकतो. आय मीन देर इज नो डिबेट ऑन दॅट. सो काय होतं की ॲज अ रिसर्चर आपण किती पण सांगितलं की मी काहीच करणार नाही, मी ऑब्जेक्टिव्ह आहे, द मोमेंट यू आर देअर इट चेंजेस द डायनामिक्स. ठीक है, तो डिपेंड अपॉन हाउ मच ट्रस्ट यू हैव, हाउ मच नेटवर्क यू बिल्ड, whether they want to tell you that reality, whether they want to make you feel or give all the right answers, politically correct answers, you will go back with a kind of a constructed reality, right? When out of that 5%, for example, one person goes, again that reality would change, right? So feminist says that it is an extremely, research is extremely contextual. So if I come do research and say that, okay, in Nashik, in KTHM, this group, which was a capacity building group, is this. Tomorrow, if my colleague comes and says that, Anrika, you said this, but I thought this is this. I am correct, and even my colleague is correct, right? Why? Because the way you reacted to what my colleague was saying, that was a reality in itself in that context. Okay, तर हे एक I would say sutra, or just keep this principle in your mind that when you are the field, you know the best. Not your teacher, not your guide, not your supervisor, anyone. You know what is happening, and you have created that reality because your presence itself has created that reality, right? So it is extremely contextual. त्या कॉन्टेक्स्टला होतं आहे की तुम्ही काय आले, काय प्रश्न विचारले. इट डिपेंड्स. इफ यू आर आस्किंग क्वेश्चन्स विच इज जनरल, there will be some reactions. If you're asking questions which is very personal, intimate, like sexuality, there would be a different kind of answers. If you're talking about caste, depending upon who are, what are the caste dynamics of that group, the responses would be different. It will be different on, for example, if there is a caste movement going on and this question is being asked, it is different. If the caste movement happened 20 years back and you're asking now, the responses would be different. So that is what the feminists have been talking about, that when you're doing research, we need to be very, very aware of your context. And that leads to whatever point is that your own social location, म्हणजे काय की मी कुठल्या जातीतलं आहे, मी कुठल्या क्लासचा आहे, माझं जेंडर काय आहे, मी कुठलं लँग्वेज बोलतो आहे, हे सगळं मॅटर करेल जेव्हा आपण फील्डमध्ये आहोत. सो दिस बायनरी थिंग बिटवीन ऑब्जेक्टिव्ह अँड सब्जेक्टिव्ह, की आपण फील्डमध्ये ऑब्जेक्टिव्हला जातो असं नसतो ते. बिकॉज द मोमेंट, फॉर एक्झाम्पल, quickly, what are interest areas? Fast. Anyone? Music. Okay. Maths. Dance. Okay. Politics. Sports. Singing. Photography. Yeah, you are taking photographs. Yeah. Okay. Anybody? Microbiology. Wow. It is beyond my thing. Yeah. So the thing what happens is that whatever music, dance, sports, photography, microbiology, maths, if yeah. So the thing is, the moment we choose a subject, like for example, if you're talking about music and caste, right? So if you're talking about that, because there's been very interesting work, like if you look at S.M. Krishnan's work, very interesting. So he's talking about caste and classical tradition, right? Very interesting. So anyway, so the moment you choose a subject, right, choose a particular, why he likes music and somebody else likes dance, your subjectivity enters there. So you cannot say that you are not there. You're already there, right? So this is a very dicey thing that we talk about, that oh, I'm an objective researcher, there is. So there the feminists have raised the question that what we need is strong objectivity, right? So when they say strong objectivity, it means what? That we know who we are, that we understand us, that we understand our location. And that is one of the most interesting assignments that I've ever given to my students in Pune University, mostly for gender or Indian sociology class. Sociology of India class, is that write an essay on who am I. And here we are not talking about माझं नाव हे आहे, but now is name is also very important. मी ह्या कॉलेजमधनं आले, असं माझं हॉबी हे. Not that. Who are you as an individual? Do you understand your own caste locations? Do you understand the power or disprivilege or marginalization it brings? What about gender and caste? What all those things, right? So what happens is, depending upon who we are, depending upon what we read and how we understand, we start framing questions. So these research questions doesn't come from somewhere. असं आकाशातून काहीच पडत नाही, ते आपण क्रिएट करतो. जेव्हा आपण क्रिएट करतो, जोपर्यंत आपल्याला आपण कोण आहे, हू एम आय, इफ आय डोंट अंडरस्टँड हू इज अनुरेखा, I won't be able to ask these questions. So therefore, while feminists are talking about that while framing research questions, it is very important to understand your social location and how that social location has an impact in your research, right? And that you will find it becomes more and more clearer when I do a little more on doing feminist research. म्हणजे नेमकं काय आहे doing feminist research, because many of us come and say that when they introduce me, when they introduce themselves to me, they say, madam माझं gender झालंय. Okay, what does it mean? So ते काय म्हणतात, माझं genderचं course झालंय, right? They mean that. But doing gender, is one of the most challenging things. Why do you think, I think this is the 4th day of this. You have heard so much about gender, gender खूपच. Like, do you think it's difficult? Yeah? Yes? Yes, why? Quickly. No right, no wrong answers. Complicated. Wide spectrum. Constructed. Dynamic. Okay. I'm looking for that one thing. Anyone? तुम्हाला easy वाटतो? It is inclusive. Okay. Gender, it is always like a mirror. Doing gender. समजलं? हां, काय समजलं? Yes, it forces us to look at ourselves. It forces us. Like, for example, I'll say that, oh, I'm a woman, so I'm very marginalized. I say, no, Anurekha, you are an upper caste privileged woman. You are not marginalized, right? It calls out to whatever kind of power that I have, and I can't ignore it. And therefore, it is a very, very painful process. We cannot, those who do gender, त्यांना असं authority असं सोपं नसतो. कसं feminists always say that you have to question power, and नंतर तुम्हीच हेड होऊन गेले आणि तुम्ही म्हणता की अरे माझ्याकडे खूप पॉवर आहे. How is this possible? You have to always interrogate. So therefore, doing gender is very, very difficult because, and I think Manisha Gupte will be talking about intersectionality. So she's also wonderful. So the other thing is, like, we can't talk about gender without talking about our class, our region, our caste, and things like that, right? So it is in a very what it does is that it questions your own self. It makes you look at yourself and problematizes your own self, right? So therefore, doing gender is very, very difficult. Other subjects, you go, you do, you write, it will be all okay. But for example, when in the class we talk about patriarchy, and then we see that how patriarchy also impacts the males, right? And then you feel that, my God, how difficult it is, right? What was I doing all this life, right? So therefore, it is a challenge. And that is not there in many of the subjects. Like sexuality. Sexuality is another very, very, anything to do with identity, any subject, any course, any theory that do anything to do with identity. Identity साठी बरोबर जे पण असतो ना, ते खूप डिफिकल्ट असतो. कसं ते आपल्याशी स्वतःशी आपण आपल्या सब्जेक्टशी वेगळं नाही राहू शकत. वी आर ऑलरेडी देअर. So when I'm doing gender, I can't take away Anurekha out of it. I am already there, right? So this is a challenge, and therefore doing research is very, very, very challenging in doing gender research. Of course, we can do gender research without even questioning ourselves. तसं पण होऊ शकतो, सगळं होऊ शकतो. बट इफ खरं करायचं गेलं, परत खरं इज अगेन in quotes, right? Really, if you want to do gender, it's a very very difficult subject, right? And what it happens, it's also kinds of questions the binary between the public and the private. Hey, vegla vegla nahi hai. I can't come and talk about women's rights and especially household, domestic servants, domestic helps workers rights and all, and then go back home and not give the help who is coming to my home even think about her rights. I can't do that. So that will be like a duality, and that we can't do. Like I can't talk about saying that, oh, I understand gender as a spectrum and all those things, and then if tomorrow my son comes and says that, oh, I'm not comfortable in my gender, then I can't say that nahi nahi asं कसं काय माझा मुलगा आहे असं कसं तू बोलशील. I can't do that, right? So that will be my true test, and that is something that we need to keep in mind, that what it does is that the divide between who you are in your private life and who are you in your public life, that divide of public and private, it challenges. आणि हे कॅपिटलिस्टमध्ये असं खूप पेट्रियार्कीमध्ये खूप सोपं केलं आहे त्यांनी, की ते डिवाइड केलं का सगळं क्लिअर होऊन जातो. सो टू युअर क्वेश्चन इन टर्म्स ऑफ the women workers not getting the shift in the night, it is just not about the industry trying to provide safe spaces or the state, but it is also the house, also the family, also the partner, also the children, also the community. Because for a long time, you remember, I mean, nowadays I don't think there is these BPOs. There's a lot of women who are working in the night shifts, but when they used to come, there's a lot of gossips की रात्री येते, सकाळीच म्हणजे रात्रीच जाते, सकाळीच येते. A lot of, so it is just not about the industry, it is just not about the state, it is also about the family, it is about the community, about the neighborhood. That here they divide a public private, feminist research kinds of squashes it. He says that public and private is very very integrated with each other, interrelated with each other, right? So that is one very very important. The other important aspect is for a very long time we have been looking at knowledge that is produced by the privileged, म्हणजे जे सत्ताधारी लोक आहे, the people who have power, people who have position, they are the people who write, they are the people who write books, and we study them, right? So till the time we don't change, and I think very interesting again book by Richa Nagar, Sangatin Yatra. So what she did is like, so I was very inspired by her, so I wrote with my students, So she wrote with her co-workers who were part of the Mahila Samakhya program. So it is that journey. So it is just not about researcher from the West or researcher from Hyderabad, researcher from where coming and giving gyan, right? So my son asked me, तो आज क्या ज्ञान वाटायला चालली आहे का? He really, नहीं, it is not a question of ज्ञान, giving gyan, because gyan is such a contested thing, कि ज्ञान क्या है, it's such a contested, and that is something that we need to question, कि आपण कोणाचं वाचतोय, कोणी लिहिलंय, काय लिहिलंय, काय knowledge आहे, because we need to understand that many things that we understand today from religion, from tradition, हा आमची संस्कृती आहे, हा आमचा culture आहे, but whose culture, whose tradition, who has written that, who has interpreted that? These are very very uncomfortable questions. Why are these uncomfortable questions? म्हणजे काय होतं की कल्चरमध्ये, ट्रेडिशनमध्ये एका कम्फर्ट झोन होऊन जातो, म्हणजे आपल्याला माहिती असतो असं असं करायचं आहे. सो वेन देर इज अ शिफ्ट इन दॅट, देर इज लॉट ऑफ फीलिंग ऑफ व्हेरी fearful about something that you are not comfortable with, you don't know what's happening, right? So therefore these questions are very very difficult, and therefore feminists ask, like a recent example that I will give is दिवाळी कोणाला आवडतो? दिवाळी, हां. ईद कोणाला आवडतो? हां, ओके. सेवया वगैरे खायला भेटतं, ओके. क्रिसमस कोणाला आवडतो? ओके, सगळ्यांना आवडतो. क्रिसमस ट्रीज, केक्स, ओके ओके, ठीक आहे. बट द थिंग इज, वेन वी थिंक अबाउट दीज, तर दिवाळीमध्ये विल जस्ट टेक द एक्झाम्पल ऑफ दिवाळी. दिवाळीमध्ये काय काय बनतं? ऑल दोज वी स्टार्ट फीलिंग हंग्री, राईट? सो वेन वी थिंक अबाउट ऑल दीज थिंग्स अँड थिंक अबाउट फेस्टिवल, do we think about the kind of labor that goes into making all these things? So a recent student of Hyderabad department, she did a gendered analysis of work during festivals, and she could see the amount of work that, and she in Jaipur, her field site was Jaipur, and she compared Hindu festival in terms of Diwali and Eid ka, Muslims ka Eid ul Fitr, and the whole Ramzan period. She did an ethnography of it. She said maybe the delicacies these women were preparing were different, but everyone were talking about how strenuous it is. Believe me, I used to enjoy Diwali during my childhood. After marriage, I started hating Diwali. It's too much of work. Faral kada, faral theva. You will give faral, you will go, they'll say, nahi, anu he noko, he ladu kadunge. Parat te ladu theva. It's endless. The amount of work that goes. Right? They clean kara, te koni कोण येणार पण नाही, कोणी बघणार पण नाही, पण सगळे डबे काढा. Like, what is this? So this is the kind of questions that a feminist would look at it. We would look at it as a festival, as a tradition, but these would be the questions. So therefore, many times I say that after doing feminism, I can't even enjoy Suraj Barjatiya movies. हम साथ साथ हैं तो मैं enjoy कर ही नहीं पाती, because like it is what it is. Yeah, you know, हम आपके, because it is, you always say कि अरे this is so gendered, this is so casteist, this is so patriarchal. अच्छी बहू कौन है, अच्छी लड़की कौन है, you know, like अच्छा लड़का कौन है, like these are. So what does doing feminist research means? What I mean, there are a lot of books. It's just that जे invisible आहे, invisible म्हणजे काय की जे आहे पण आपल्याला दिसत नाही. जे इनविजिबल आहे त्याला शोधून काढणं, आणि ते आपला एव्हरीडे मध्येच आहे. ते असं बाहेरून कुठून येत नाही, आपल्यामध्येच आहे, आपला इर्दगिर्दमध्ये आहे, आणि ते आपण बघतच नाही. सो हाऊसहोल्ड वर्क आपण बघत नाही. म्हणजे आई जे म्हणजे आई स्वयंपाक करायचं ते जेंडर्ड का आहे ते आपण बघत नाही. पोळी गोलच का असावी हा प्रश्नाचा आत्तापर्यंत मला उत्तर मिळाला नाही आहे. आय मीन, नंतर आपल्याला खायचंच येते, तर ते गोल का असावी, आणि त्याच्यावर आपली स्किल सेट का आपण मेजर करायचं. तो माय सिनियर प्रोफेसर अपर्णा रायपोल, I was telling her that, Aparna, I mean, I've tried my best, but my roti is never goal, right? She said that making roti goal is a patriarchal construct. I just love that sentence, right? So this is something that we need to understand, that what is the skill that we are talking about? What is this invisible thing that is there? What is the discrimination that is there, right? So they'll say that, okay, you can hire someone to do your household work. Okay, but then it will be only the upper class women. Like today, in most of our houses, if the maid who comes in, then you start asking her how many households you work. She will work 8 to 10 households. But then she says that I get up at 5, finish my own household work, and then come here, right? So what I'm doing is taking away my labor that I have to do, but management I have to do and pay money for that, right? So that is something which is very, very important. Again, the question comes, and I'm sure you will have heard about the Pune, lot of cases in terms of caste and work. So even within the household, if there is a woman coming, what kind of, are you going to look at caste? Are you going to look at religion? So what kind of woman would you want to do your cooking? What kind of woman would you want to do your cleaning? So are we not asking these questions? Are we seeing the differences? This is where the feminists would be looking at, right? So म्हणजे काय की everything that is there all over us, something that is kind of shrouded in saying that असंच असतो, हेच असतो, काहीच प्रॉब्लेम नाही, याला शोधून काढणं, याचं असं अनलेयर्ड करणं. I don't think the unlayered, I think for your generation it is that unboxing thing, right? You have those videos now where you unbox a thing. It is that doing feminist research is that you unbox it and see. And what you see where caste is there, you see where discrimination is there, you see where class is there, you see where language issues are there, right? And that becomes a very, very important aspect that we need to keep on. Okay? So before I go on, any questions, quick comment, anything? How long do I have? Okay, so I have one. Yeah, I know. Important. Anything? No, because I will also be hungry. Yeah, anything? Nothing? काहीच मनात आलं नाही? म्हणजे हा रेलेव्हंट नाही वाटत का? हा लेक्चर रेलेव्हंट नाही वाटत? वाटतो ना? हां, तर प्रश्न No, I'll just clarify why I want questions, because you see, as teachers, we love our voices. You allow me to speak for 2 hours, I'll be happily, म्हणजे बघा सगळं लिहून आली मी, I'll be happily speaking. But this is now how it should be done, right? It is a workshop. It's not a lecture. So if it is a workshop, workshop will be okay only if you speak. Yes.
Ma'am, what are the problems when men try to deconstruct feminism?
There is a very interesting set of articles by, it's in EPW, it is by Pushpesh Kumar, Oishik Sarkar and a group. You should be reading this. In nutshell, I'll just tell two challenges. One is the whole question of power. Because for many of us, which also includes upper caste women also, or that to give away or negotiate with power is very difficult, like, right? So that becomes an important question. Therefore it is sometimes difficult to engage with, like I remember when I used to teach gender, first year 2 years was okay, but then I started feeling that but okay, just one step back, delete what I said just now. Sociology of gender in Pune University was a very, very popular subject. Not that because I was teaching, it was that you had lot of material in Marathi because of the Women Studies Center. So that was the only course which had parallel Marathi readings, very good readings. तर त्याच्यामुळे काय व्हायचं की इट ऑलमोस्ट लाईक वॉज लाईक अ कंपल्सरी कोर्स. सगळे मुलं जेंडर घेणारच, म्हणजे इट वॉज लाईक बाय डिफॉल्ट तसं आहे. तर पहिल्या 1-2 वर्ष मला काय तसं, मी आय वॉज ऑल्सो यंग, आय वॉज ऑल्सो ग्रोईंग, सो इट म्हणजे सेट ऑफ सिलेबस आहे, मी जाऊन शिकवते असं. पण देन आय स्टार्टेड रिअलायझिंग इट स्टार्टेड बिकमिंग लाईक मेल वर्सेस फिमेल, यु नो, लाईक तू असंच आहे, तू असंच आहे, असंच काय असं. So then I started that this is not what exactly gender is. So then I started bringing in Chainika Shah. I started bringing in Pushpesh Kumar sexualities, Sanjay Srivastav sexualities, doing fieldwork in, and then I have very good set of students who are doing who were doing very good feminist work. So it really helped. So that is something that we need to understand, that many a times the way patriarchy is there, म्हणजे पितृसत्ता जसा आपला सिस्टममध्ये, म्हणजे फक्त इंडियामध्ये नाही सगळ्यामध्ये, यू एसमध्ये पितृसत्ता रेस बरोबर, एथनिसिटी बरोबर जुडलेलं आहे. इथे कास्ट, क्लास आणि एथनिसिटी, रिलिजियन बरोबर असं जुडलेलं आहे. त्याला चॅलेंज करणं खूपच डिफिकल्ट जातो. कसं त्याच्यासाठी चॅलेंज करणं, पहिला आपल्याला स्वतःला आपलं पोझिशन चॅलेंज करावा लागतो, जे खूप डिफिकल्ट आहे. आणि एवढं वर्ष, म्हणजे तुम्ही जेव्हा येणार कॉलेजला तेव्हा तुम्ही 21-22 years असणार, राईट, मे बी लिटल यंगर. बट वॉट अबाउट दॅट 15 years, 16 years of already the conditioning that you have had, right? It is very difficult to engage with that, because what it does, it shows our own problems. म्हणजे जेव्हा आपण जेंडर बरोबर असं काम करतो, आपणच, म्हणजे इट इज जस्ट नॉट अबाउट सेईंग थँक्यू टू युअर मदर और थँक्यू टू युअर फादर, की हां आज तू माझ्यासाठी स्वयंपाक केलं, थँक्यू, तसं नाही. पण मी किती त्याच्यामध्ये काम केलं, मी आहे का त्या कामात, ते पुढे जाऊन माझ्या पार्टनरबरोबर तसं असेल का, कसं त्याच्या माझी अगर मुलं असतील त्याची सोशलायझेशनला कसं असेल. टू वॉट एक्सटेंट डू आय रेस्पेक्ट माय फीमेल कलिग्स इन माय क्लासरूम, to what extent do I respect my male colleagues in my classroom who come from different caste? Do I consciously, for example, food. No, food is a very, very intimate but a very, very casteist kind of a thing, ना. जे कोणाबरोबर आपण खाऊ शकतो, कोणाचं खाऊ शकतो. अरे तुझं खूप चांगला वाटतो, पण नाही ना, ते असं स्मेल येतो यार, असं. तर आमच्याकडे असं ना, आम्ही खात नाही, आम्ही असं बटाट्याची भाजी असं नाही करत. सो व्हॉट इज दिस, वी डोंट रिअलाइज, बट वी आर so much seeped in patriarchy in terms of caste and class that it is very difficult. It's just not doing masculinity. So there was this question that even the feminist asked, that is the sex of the researcher epistemologically significant? What does it mean? It means that if I am a woman and I identify myself as a woman and I go and do research on women, will that make a difference? Maybe it is not necessarily so, because if I have my own understanding in terms of caste, which I don't change, or race that I don't change, or ethnicity, the way I will look at that category of women would be again different, right? So it is not necessary that only women can do research on women, men can do work on men, men can't do work on women. It is a question of the researcher. Okay, but there are certain spaces like I talked about Chandrakant's work, like talking about certain kind of intimate personal experiences, which for most of us we don't talk about in public. You see, at the end, having periods is something that is very natural. Like everyone, every woman goes through it in different points. It stops, and we all know about it. Yeah, we have been taught, but the way we are taught in biology, the way we are taught about reproductive cycle in the school is so problematic that it creates those kind of issues that women are not comfortable, and men. And there's an interesting, I think, which company I forget, but there's a very interesting ad that is circulating on periods. That why don't we talk about periods to men, right? Because at the end, Vaishali was talking about development. There's a lot of work that has come up that men in different roles, like as brothers, as fathers, as husbands, as sons, as friends, right, play a very important role in understanding gender and questioning gender. So they have argued, now the recent arguments that are coming up on feminism development is that for a long time we have focused on how women can help women. But what we need to do is now is also talk about men in partners, like supportive partnerships. Radhika Chopra's very interesting work, supporting masculinities, is that how as men in our different roles, right, make the society more gender inclusive. The amount of work that men who are present here can do for their female friends in the classroom is so huge. I, when I when if you have heard what Sanjay was talking about, I teach a course on changing Indian family. Okay, so there, while talking about family, I brought in this concept of supportive masculinities. Huh. So then we did like a, because students and they are integrated students, means BA. So ते थोड़ा बोर होत होते, तर मी काय केलं, I divided into boy girls girls boys group girls group, right? And they were like, madam, gender. I said, yeah, it'll come, wait. So then I said that what do you expect from the other group? What can the other group do? What can girls do for you and what can the boys do? So they had like a 15 minutes discussion, and then then they were asked to write on the board, right? तर जेव्हा first the boys group went and they said that the question was, what can you do for the girls, right? So they said, we can bring water, we can share notes. असं सगळं 2-3 गोष्ट त्यांनी सांगितलं. I said, girls, they can be more supportive. They can, I think they should listen to us. If I want to cry, I should be allowed to cry. So they were thinking, my God, the boys were thinking of very practical thing, like pani आणून देऊ, हे करू, ते करू. But girls were talking about, can we talk about these things with boys? They were more philosophical. Their needs were much more than just because they can also get water, right? But what it means. And I thought that the most interesting thing was when my son, he's 17 and he hates if I bring his example, but sorry. But he says that he had talked with his friend and she said that she's not coming to the class because she has cramps, right? So then he wrote a message saying that, okay, don't worry, take care, you will feel better, right? We are there. And then he comes in, theek hai na? I mean, I hope I didn't write wrong. I said, no, that was very good of you. So this is something that is important, right? I don't know, I think I went from somewhere and went somewhere, but this is like, it comes from our own thing, and we make it things which are very normalized, and we think this is what it is. This normalization is what the gender research questions. Ki just women making household work is not normal. The whole pressure of men earning for the family is not normal, right? It can be the other way around. There's no problem with that, and that everyone should accept. Like, this is even like a lot of boys who come and say that, ma'am, तुम्ही तर असं म्हणतात, but girls, when we talk about partnership, they say that त्यांना असंच मुलं पाहिजे ज्यांना गव्हर्नमेंट जॉब आहे, सिक्युरिटी आहे, घर आहे. I said that is itself is a very gendered and a patriarchal concept, because the girls are also taught that you are to be taken care of. है ना. तर तू घरचं काम करशील आणि ते बाहेरून सगळं जे पण कमवायचं तू सगळं her husband or partner, whoever will do it. And that needs to be questioned. It doesn't matter. Then what we do is we kind of give value to work. You know, like if the same Sanjeev Kumar or whoever's a chef cooks that whatever, it is like a very well paid work, right? Valued work. But the same woman is doing it day in and out, that is drudgery, unpaid, right? So even how do we categorize work? How do policies categorize work? आपण जेव्हा रिसर्च करायला जातो हेड ऑफ द हाउसहोल्ड, आपके हस्बैंड कहाँ है, हम पहले से ही बोल देते हैं कि वी हैव एज्यूम्ड एज रिसर्चर हु इज द हेड ऑफ द हाउसहोल्ड. ऑर एल्स दे विल आस्क दैट तुम्ही काय काम करतात, नाही ताई मी काहीच करत नाही, फक्त हे करते. देन यू आर से दैट there's a very interesting like time use survey method. What they do is they say every half an hour, म्हणजे तुम्ही केव्हा उठतात, फॉर एक्झाम्पल 5:30, राईट, 5:30 टू रात्री 10 वाजता जेव्हा पण तुम्ही झोपतात, एव्हरी अर्धा तास जे पण ॲक्टिव्हिटी करतात, काम वर्ड नाही वापरायचं, जे ॲक्टिव्हिटी करतात ते फक्त लिहा. अ डायरी ऑफ 15 days or 1 month. सो देन यू फाइंड दॅट निवडायचं, वॉशिंग करायचं, वाळायचं, आणायचं, फोल्ड करायचं, हे. अँड देन यू फाइंड द अमाऊंट ऑफ वर्क दॅट दे डू. दे डोंट अंडरस्टँड दॅट दॅट इज वर्क, which is also similar to men also. Some work that they do that they don't understand that this is work. घरचंच आहे बुवा तेवढं. So this is something. So what is the thing here? The thing is we are doing too many things, different things in a feminist research. Then first, even changing the way we do method की आपण नाही विचारायचं काय काम केलं आहे, बिकॉज लोकांमध्ये कामाचं जे परिभाषा आहे ना, डेफिनेशन आहे, ते खूप लिमिटेड आहे. पेड वर्कच आहे. मी काम केलं का ज्याच्यामध्ये मला पैसे मिळालं म्हणजे ते काम. जे दुसरं जे मी करतो ते घरचंच आहे ना, ते तर काय. तर वी नीड टू आस्क अबाउट ॲक्टिव्हिटीज, राईट. द अदर थिंग दॅट विल शो दॅट ॲट वन पॉईंट ऑफ टाईम वुमेन डू लॉट ऑफ डिफरंट थिंग्स. एका वेळेला ती गप्पा पण मारते, म्हणजे काय, गप्पा मारणं इज ऑल्सो व्हेरी सिरियस थिंग. लाईक वॉट दे डू इज दे मेंटेन कम्युनिटी लेवल्स. म्हणजे विचारते ना तू बरी आहे का, असं आहे का, ते असं. वॉट दे आर डुईंग, दे आर शोईंग कन्सर्न. इट इज बिल्डिंग कम्युनिटी. they do this निवडायचं सगळं. So it also shows that as feminist researcher, as a researcher, how creative you are with the way that you are doing your research, right. There's very interesting thing about like folk songs as epistemic resource. म्हणजे आपण जे एपिस्टमॉलॉजी वाचलो की हुज नॉलेज, ठीक आहे, आपण विचारतो कुठून नॉलेज येतो, ज्ञान कुठून येतो. गीतामधून, म्हणजे गाने से आ सकता है क्या, फोक सॉन्ग से आ सकता है क्या. फोक सॉन्ग्स क्या है, जैसे आजकल वो बोलते हैं ना रैप में लाइफ वर्ल्ड, हिप हॉप, या जैज वॉज एट वन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम considered to be a challenge. Hip hop, you look at how they even question race. Now they're questioning class here in India, right. You look at that hustle too, and you find the powerful words they have. Half of the things I don't understand, but it is so powerful. What they are doing is they are questioning things. एन्व्हायरमेंट हो, क्लास असू, कास्ट असू, ते विचारतात. लँग्वेज, मराठीमध्ये, तामिळमध्ये किती पॉवरफुल ते सगळे रॅप सॉंग्स आलेत. what is this? If you look at analysis of that is trying to understand society through their own words. So can we think of hip hop, can we think of rap as epistemic resource? Can we think of women singing when they are working as epistemic resource? कसं तेव्हा ते एक, I think her name is Singh, I forget her first name, but she has done very interesting work on Bhojpuri songs, folk songs, about how it talks about women's labor, women's desires, because she's also contextualizing it to large scale migration of men to different places for work, and then women are left behind. So when they are left behind, say virah, they काम, that desire, sexual, सगळं ते गाने में आता है. That care for the family, children, health issues, ते सगळं. So can we think of that? Can we think of songs as epistemic resource? So at the end, what is it? I mean, doing feminist research means what? की जे इनविजिबल आहे त्याला आपण विजिबल करू शकतो का? जे नॉर्मलाइज सांगितलंय, जे नॅचरल सांगतं, असंच असतो आपल्याकडे, नसतो असं. आपल्याला विचारावं लागेल की का असं असतो, राईट. और जो एरियाज हैं हमें पता नहीं, बट आई फील दैट देयर इज समथिंग, राइट. आई हैड, I mean, long time back as MA student, I had a student who did a presentation on गालियाँ गालियाँ, and we had to close the doors because वो गाली पे गाली दे रही थी in the stage, because what she was trying to show that how gendered it is. Just think about your galis, na? You don't have to tell me now, but just think. Just think about it. It is all related to female sexuality, female body parts, female's legitimacy, everything related to mother, related to sister. Why is it? Isn't this problematic? Right? So where did this come from? Do we think about it? We just take it for granted and we think, okay, this is so true, right? So these are different ways in which you can think about, because everything is around you. It goes back to the first point that I was saying, that your experience, जिथे जे एक्सपिरियन्स झाला ज्याच्यामध्ये तुम्ही अनकम्फर्टेबल झाले, म्हणजे तिथे काहीतरी प्रॉब्लेम आहे. स्टार्ट थिंकिंग अबाउट इट. ओके, सो आय थिंक देयर इज 10 minutes if there are any questions.
Ma'am, and in feminist research, does the problem with a problem of patriarchy on men that count? Because as a boy, I've already been told that you don't have to shave your mustache, your beard, uh, and you have to not shave your chest hair either. But when I said that, okay, some boys do it, then they said nahi, Rajput hai to rakhna padega. So there are many elements of patriarchy on men.
Yes,
So
yes.
does feminism study that?
Yes, you look at lot of interesting work. Raven Connell's work, if you look, she talks about hegemonic masculinity, dominant masculinity, and there's another word, subordinate masculinities. म्हणजे what kind of look is masculine, what kind of look is non-masculine. आपण कोणाचं आपण वेगळं वेगळं वर्ड्स बोलून we make fun of it, and there are certain elements like a mustache, a beard associated with certain caste, certain identity. So that's a खूप आहे. There's a lot of work. You look at the work of Raven Connell, gender and power, त्यांचं work आहे. It's very interesting work, because the thing that comes up is that masculinity is also not a uniform masculinity. म्हणजे इवन विद इन मॅस्क्युलिनिटी आपल्याला असं आहे की कोण असं जास्त मॅस्क्युलिन, कोण कमी मॅस्क्युलिन, आणि त्याच्यावर त्याचा सत्ता, त्याचा पॉवर सगळं डिपेंडेंट राहील, राईट. सो इवन मॅस्क्युलिनिटी इज नॉट सिंगल. कास्टमध्ये डिवायडेड आहे ना, सो रेसमध्ये डिवायडेड आहे. लाईक इफ यू लुक ॲट US, a kind of dominance of white men over black men, it's huge, right? Upper class men over lower class men, huge. Same way everywhere. All the later on things with regard to intercaste marriages, related to honor, which I think Manisha will bring in, so I'm not going into there because her work is on that, so I won't touch that area. But of course that will come in the presentations. I have seen the schedule, but that is there is no one. जसं फेमिनिटी पण एक नाही आहे ना, म्हणजे फेमिनिटी काय 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 म्हणजे लॉंग हेअर मीन्स मोर फेमिनिन, राईट. Gori means when you're fair means you're more feminine. Our standards of beauty, then we have these measures, right? We create these measures, right? And we say that, okay, this is means beauty, this is not beauty, right? And then there is this whole in development मध्ये सर पण म्हणत होतं कॅपिटल, the whole, like I told in the class की किती केलं तरी ते फेअर अँड लवली लावू नका, काहीच फरक नाही पडत. खूप वर्ष मी वापरले, it doesn't work, right? So you are sold that image, right? So but they say, oh, we are very progressive. What is that progressive? First, what they'll do is, initially when I was growing up, the ad of Fair and Lovely would say that if you put that Fair and Lovely over like 15 days, I think, then I'll become very beautiful, I'll marry very well, right? पहले वो लड़के आते थे काली कलूटी ऐसे कुछ तो बोल के आते थे, then you are fair and then oh god, this is a fairy, I want to marry. But now what they say that we have become progressive. How? You will land a job. Arey, is it so simple as if I become fair, I just go to somewhere and I get a job? Right? What about the whole years of hard work that I've been doing? Right? It's what I'm saying, that it is not problematic to look fair or not look fair. The thing is, how are you selling that product? And what are you making that progressiveness all about? If it is about confidence, it is one thing which need not be necessarily related to your skin color, right? It is talks about your inner strength, inner confidence, right? So that is something. And the thing is, I've seen that confidence comes very late. Like I remember मुझे When I used to teach CHB मध्ये sir बोलत होते, when I used to teach in CHB, teaching a class when you are young is very difficult because nobody takes you for a teacher. When you grow up, you have white hair, which I sometimes put henna and all. So you look like a say teacher, and ते म्हणते हो आता अनुरेखा बोललं का आम्हाला थोडं ऐकावं लागेल. But this comes with time, right? So these products and all, these are what it comes, right? So masculinity is differentiated, diverse, very much layered masculinity. It's not like one kind of masculinity. You had a question, yeah.
The burden of patriarchy, which is somewhere on some of the males. What feminists did for it?
So that's what I was saying, that not on some of the men, all men have this pressure of abiding by certain norms of masculinity. Okay? And to also a large extent, all the members of the society of all genders, we are also responsible for that, right? So initially feminists were working mostly on looking at gender as women, but increasingly you find there's a lot of interesting work coming on masculinities also. I just gave you the example of Radhika Chopra, who is also talking about supportive masculinities, that how men can challenge masculinity to be a supportive partner in the whole development process. So some work is being done, but of course the field is wide open for all of you. There's a lot
Yes.
of work to be done.
Ma'am, my one of the question is that feminism is about to reduce male dominance, or which is the result of patriarchy, or to increase female dominance in terms of development, or is focusing on equality, making society equal for all the genders.
Yeah, not both, not the either one, because they are like binaries. Binaries म्हणजे समजतं ना, opposites.
Yes.
तसं नाही बघायचं. Equality, yes, but not just a gender equality. We are talking about an intersectional perspective. In the sense, we have to look at gender in the context of caste, class, race, ethnicity. So we are talking about that kind of equality, because reducing it to gender equality would be missing the structure. So we have to be careful with that.
Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you. You had a question. Okay, initially the feminist researcher won't make this assumption that only within the Muslim community it is religious. Even within Hindus, even within Christians, we are extremely religious, right? So that is the first point. The second is, like if you look at the work of Hem Borkar, young researcher who has done very interesting work on ethnography, on madrasas, young girls in madrasas, right? So, so there are these interesting work that is available. Third is, any community that you go to do research will always have questions about what the researcher is doing, right? So one way that the feminist researcher does is share what work that they are doing, right? So that it becomes a much more transparent kind of work that is happening. And in that thing, you remember what I said about social location. You have to be the researcher has to be um, extremely, what's that word I'm looking for? Extremely aware of their social location, which caste she come from, which religion that she come from. That makes her ask these questions, right? So that location of the self is very, very important. Yeah. So these challenges would be there. It is not always necessary just if the religious background of the researcher is different. Even if it is the same, these questions do come.
Ma'am, recently there was an ad by a very famous Indian jewelry company. I don't remember the name, but the ad was about a lesbian couple celebrating Karwa Chauth, and it was put down within a day. So the question is whether feminism is always going to be dominated by other parameters in the society.
I hope not. But it is, as I said, that many things which are different, which if you look at Nivedita Menon's work, she will talk about heteronormativity. Okay, our language. For example, very easily I would just say he, she. As teachers also, we are aware, but it doesn't come out in our way we easily answer. Like I was saying, uh, if she is a researcher, how do I use the word they? Okay. Or if I give example, I will always say that, oh, when you meet your partner, I will always assume that it is a heterosexual partner. So it just comes out. So to how do I remove that from my language? Right? How do I remove that from it being natural? Right? Can't I say a couple? Right? So to change that would take time, right? But the fact that now we are talking about that there is an advertisement which had to be taken out means people understand, or the society understand, that you can't brush these things under the carpet. This is a reality, it will have to be there, right? And then you have, like, in different ways, maybe little limiting, but more like, I don't know which OTT channel you have, Majama, that new movie by Madhuri. It also talks about love between the same sex, but told in a very different manner. So there are ways in which people are now talking about it, and you can't. ते पण आहे, सावधान
Even
आहे.
fire.
Fire was like long time back, and till now it evokes a lot of
Controversy.
controversy. But one important thing in that notion of fire was that one of the women, I think she was Shabana Azmi, she was drawn to the other woman in her life after she was not happy with the way her husband treated. So that was little different, right? So that, I think, was talking about bisexuality rather than lesbianism, right? So that would be my. But at that point of time, that movie was very important. Okay, so again this comes up about, again, questions about our culture. All those things are there, but again there are various things about our own culture that we are not aware of, right? Why are we not aware of? Is that, has anybody written about that? If they have written, are we reading about that? There are a lot of things which are there. History has also been written by people, right? So how do we know about that? Like, for example, if I go to Khajuraho or if I go to Konark, right, you have these inscriptions on the temple, right? There are a lot of depictions of same-sex relationships. So are we talking, I mean, how would that depiction come? We were talking about folk songs. Paintings are also like that. It depicts from what is happening in the everyday. So how do we understand that? So again, what is her name? I forget that, but I'll send it to Sanjay sir. On same-sex love. It's her name I forget. I think some Kidwai and someone. So very interesting about what they have done. Remember what I was talking about, doing theory in the historical location? They have historically located sexuality. So this whole thing that comes up, that sexuality is like abhi abhi hai, modern hai, west hai. No, I mean it's much more deeper, right? And it's much more varied. There are various manifestations of that sexuality. So yeah. So,
Ma'am, even Kama Sutra mentions same-sex relationships
yeah.
as a very normal thing,
Yes.
as a desire zone.
So that's why we need to understand at what point of time restrictions come, what point of time. And the other thing is that, um, how do we understand, for example, if we know of friends who have same sex partners, how do we make, do we try to make it comfortable, and like all this. So there's a very interesting Ranjita Biswas. She talks about how intimacy is kind of portrayed even in movies. So the thing is, many times even in Hindi movies, they don't know how to show a woman falling in love with women, because we have no parameters, na? We only know how men and women, if they are in love, they are showed as singing songs. So would you show two women dancing around the trees? So can we think of that, right? So there's a lot of very interesting work coming up. I mean, they're coming up. Okay, this side is very silent. Either they are very bored or very, huh? Yeah, even listening is good. Yeah, it is good, because that paper that I was talking, that I wrote with my students, they said that, ma'am, you are, as teachers, you are trained to listen to the voices. You are not trained to listen to the silences. Yes, you had a question.
माझा एक फ्रेंड होता तो ट्रान्सजेंडर होता म्हणजे तो आमच्या घरी
आहे.
आहे सॉरी आहे.
हां.
तर तो आमच्या घरी यायचा वगैरे पण आहे ना जेव्हा कळलं म्हणजे त्यांचे जे म्हणजे जे ट्रान्सजेंडर्स लोक येतात ते त्याला घेऊन गेले. त्याच्यानंतर माझे पॅरेंट्स असं होतं तू त्याचा नंबर पण डिलीट कर किंवा तू बोलू पण नको आता त्याच्याशी. पण मग असं का करतात जोपर्यंत तुम्हाला माहिती नव्हतं की नाही तो ट्रान्सजेंडर आहे तोपर्यंत तुम्ही त्याच्याशी व्यवस्थित असं कन्व्हर्सेशन वगैरे सगळं व्यवस्थित होतं. आणि
Yes.
जेव्हा तुम्हाला कळलं मग तुमचं ओपिनियन त्याच्याबद्दल कसं काय वाईट झालं
हो,
कारण बेसिकली
हो.
माझे फ्रेंड्स पण त्याच्याशी आता बोलत नाही पण मी बोलते सध्या
नहीं,
त्याच्याशी.
good, good. I think, for some generations, it is little difficult. They find it difficult, but what is important is to understand that maybe what can we do to change certain things, right? Like, for example, I always say that certain things, some parents coming from a different whatever, the only way to do is to talk. कीप ऑन टॉकिंग. आता नाही बोलणार ठीक आहे, उद्या बोला. बोलतच राहा की का प्रॉब्लेम आहे असं बोलायचंच. एक ना एक दिन होपफुली फिंगर्स क्रॉस दे विल अंडरस्टँड. बट what you can do is start a new conversation. Talk to your friends, talk to everyone, and so that you later on don't follow the same की तेव्हा होत होता म्हणून आता पण असंच होईल पुढेच असं. सो वी नीड टू सेट अप न्यू ट्रेडिशन्स. म्हणजे ट्रेडिशनचं कसं आहे, अँड विथ दिस थिंग आय जस्ट एंड लाईक it was a sociology of India class, right? And of course जेव्हा पण आपण ट्रेडिशनबद्दल बोलतो there's lot of contestations, है ना. तर खूप नाही मॅडम तुम्ही असं का बोलतात, आपल्याकडे असंच असतो वगैरे वगैरे. So there was this one story that one of my teachers has shared with me. So long ago, don't ask me about dates, but बहुत बहुत साल पहले there was a wedding going on. एक शादी हो रहा था. तो शादी में ऐसे बहुत सारा ऐसे सब चल रहा था. So there was this cat, right, who was going around everywhere, right. अरे कॅट आहे काय करायचं. तर एकाने काय सांगितलं, तिथे ते खंबा आहे वहाँ उसको बांध दो. ठीक आहे. तो कॅट वॉज बाउंड देअर. ठीक आहे, शादी झालं, तो कॅट झालं. तसं नंतर असं ते मुलं झाले ना, त्यांचं पण लग्न आलं. आपल्याकडे कसं झालं 28 झालं असेल तर लग्न झालं. तर ते लग्न होत होतं तर एक असे खूप म्हातारी होती. अरे अरे थांबा आपण काहीतरी विसरतो का. अरे ते कॅट राहिलं आहे. कुठलं कॅट. नाही जेव्हा यांच्या वडिलांचं लग्न झालं होतं ते खंबाला एक कॅट बांधलं होतं. चला शोधा कॅट. ठीक आहे. तर कॅट शोधलं त्यांनी आणि कॅट बांधलं तिथे. ठीक आहे. ते झालं. असं 2 पिढी त्यांचं आमच्याकडे असंच असतो. आमच्याकडे लग्नात एक कॅट बांधलं जातो. ठीक आहे. तर खूप असं 2-3 पिढी झाले. नंतर ते काय म्हटले की आता कॅटच सापडत नव्हता. म्हणजे ॲनिमल राईट्स मे बी काही इश्यू असेल. कॅटच सापडत नव्हतं. काय केलं. नाही कॅट जिवंत कॅट नाही मिळालं तर आपण एक सोन्याचं कॅट आणू. एक इट इज रिप्रेझेंटेशन. तर आमच्याकडे लग्नामध्ये सोन्याचा कॅटच दिला जातो. सो व्हॉट आय एम ट्राईंग टू से, दिस वॉज अ जोक, राईट. आय होप इट नेवर हॅपन्ड समवेअर, और इफ इट हॅपन्ड आय डोंट नो. बट व्हॉट आय एम ट्राईंग टू से इज दॅट मेनी टाइम्स वी डू थिंग्स that we don't understand its meaning, right. And we continue to do things because we feel that everyone says that is how it is, right. So till the time if it is becomes discriminatory, right, and if it doesn't match to what we are experiencing now, if I am a woman, I am in love with a woman, and I don't feel comfortable loving a man, I should have the space to do that, right. And that maybe will become a new tradition, and that space should be there. Okay, this is what we are pushing for, right. Yes.
पितृसत्ताकतेला विरोध करणारा फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्चर असतो का. तो असा व्हायब्रंट, डॉमिनंट, अग्रेसिव्ह वगैरे, तर त्याची गरज नाही आहे. मॅडमच्या संबंध प्रेझेंटेशनमधनं आपल्याला लक्षात आलं की जो अत्यंत मानवीय पातळीवर ज्ञाननिर्मिती करतो, मानवीय पातळी किंवा मानवीयता म्हणजे ह्युमेन, मानवाला जाणून घेणारी, मानवाच्या संवेदना समजावून घेणारी आणि त्याच्यामध्ये वाढ घडवणारी जी गोष्ट आहे, तर ती गोष्ट हे फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्चर करत असतात. फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्चर हे पुरुषांच्या विरोधात नाहीत, आणि फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्चर पुरुष पण असू शकतात की जे म्हणजे मानवतेचा विचार करणारे आहेत. तर यामध्ये असं करताना काय होतं की नवनवीन डायमेन्शन्स येतात, नवीन ज्ञान निर्माण होतं, नवीन थिअरीज येतात. आणि मॅडमनी बऱ्याच थिअरीचा, वेगवेगळ्या पर्स्पेक्टिव्हचा पण उल्लेख केला जाता जाता. तर आणि वेगवेगळे संदर्भ पण सांगितले पहा की हे सगळी ज्ञान निर्मिती आहे आणि ही सगळी फेमिनिस्ट पर्स्पेक्टिव्हनी आलेली आहे. तर अशी ज्ञान निर्मिती होत असताना फक्त सोशल सायन्सेसमध्ये नव्हे तर नैसर्गिक शास्त्रांमध्ये, एन्व्हायरमेंट वगैरे वगैरे सगळीकडं जे काही प्रयोग होत असतात त्यातून जे नवीन ज्ञान येतं ते सुद्धा फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्चला कसं सपोर्टिव्ह असतं. उदाहरणार्थ की आपल्याकडे एक झुओलॉजीची मुलगी आहे, हां, बायोलॉजीची, हां. तर पेंग्विन याच्यावर काम झालं, रिसर्च झाला. पेंग्विन पक्षी तुम्हाला माहिती आहे सगळ्यांना की पेंग्विन पक्षी म्हणजे ती पेंग्विन मादी असते, ती नर शोधताना, आपला पार्टनर शोधताना ती अशी बघते की गुबगुबीत असावा तो. म्हणजे आपल्याकडे उलट, आपल्याकडे स्लिम वगैरे वगैरेच, तर तो गुबगुबीत असावा. आता तो गुबगुबीत का बरं? तर त्याचं कारण पुढं आहे की बर्फाळ प्रदेशामध्ये पेंग्विन असतात. तर पेंग्विनची मादी जी असते ती एक मोठं अंड घालते. मोठं अंड असतं ते, बरोबर जवळपास 9 फूट 10 फूट इंच, 10 इंच उंचीचं असं ते मोठं अंड असतं. आणि ते अंड बर्फावर पडू द्यायचं नसतं, सगळीकडे बर्फ असतो, बर्फावर पडू द्यायचं नसतं. आणि ते अंड घातल्या घातल्या ती मादी इतकी कंटाळून जाते, श्रम झालेले असतात तिला, की ती पळूनच जाते अक्षरशः. तिला थकवा आलेला असतो, तिला पाण्यात जाऊन मस्त पोहायचं असतं, खायचं असतं, भरपूर भूक लागलेली असते. जवळजवळ 2 महिने ती गायब होते आणि ती अंड कोणाजवळ ठेवून जाते, त्याच्या पार्टनर बरोबर. तो पार्टनर ते अंड बर्फाला लागू नये याची काळजी घेत 2 पायामध्ये धरून असा उभा असतो 2 महिने सतत. आणि त्याच्यासाठी त्याला भरपूर एनर्जी पाहिजे ना, चरबी पाहिजे, म्हणून तो जाडा निवडलेला असतो पार्टनर. आता पहा की या या रिसर्च नंतर असं लक्षात आलं की अरे म्हणजे असं जाडं असणं म्हणजे काही वाईट नाहीये. हां, मग पुढं बॉडी पॉझिटिव्हिटी वगैरे पहा, फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्चमध्ये अशा वेगवेगळ्या गोष्टी ज्या ज्या सुचलेल्या आहेत, नवीन आहेत, मानवतेला बढावा देणाऱ्या आहेत, चालना देणाऱ्या आहेत, त्या सगळ्या गोष्टी ऍड होत गेलेल्या आहेत. म्हणून मला असं वाटतं की मला खूप अभिमान वाटतो की आपण सगळेजण फेमिनिस्ट आहोत. हं, आणि तुम्ही पण आहात सगळेजण. ओके, आपण ब्रेक घेतोय, पाऊण तासाचा ब्रेक घेतोय आणि नंतर पुन्हा इथं भेटतो.
Okay. Very okay. I think it would be a little difficult. I can't think of. I mean, to be frank, religion, feminists think, believe, and argue that it is a construct that we have created it, right? At different points of time, different things have emerged. So, what is God? Like, for example, in most of the many religions, God is understood like one divine being, right? But as scientists thinking that there is something like divine itself questions that whether we can be a scientist, right? So that is like one. Second thing is, how do we understand religion? Okay, so for the feminist, every religion has got some core constructs, you know, ki हे करायचं नाही असं. So it is based on certain norms of saying that this is right and this is wrong. And if you remember, one of the things that we started with saying that there is no truth, there is no right, absolute right, and all. So therefore, it is very difficult that Hinduism, the way we understand it in terms of caste and all, and feminism, I don't think it'll gel together, because what does it ask? It asks that all of us are equal, right? But you take any religion, they would say that I'm sorry, we are not equal. We are different, and only if you perform or only if you worship in one particular way, you can get God, right? And feminists would question that. That is there any particular way? You know, so being religious and being feminist, many times it is not possible, but what we do is we do negotiations. म्हणजे जे many of us do things, or it's not that one won't celebrate Diwali, maybe celebrate, but in a different way, having their own traditions. म्हणजे काय ते सांजुरी खायचं पण फ्रेंड्सला बोलवून खायचं असं असं टाईप. सो आय थिंक that is little challenging. I don't think it is possible, but hopefully maybe you will come up with something that you could relate. But again, I come back to the tenet that every religion is based on discriminating some of us. Like for example, within Hinduism, I could say that if a woman is menstruating, she's not allowed to go near the god, right? And that I feel is problematic, because if you have periods, that means there's a possibility of giving birth to a child. So how can that be polluting, right? It is a part of the blood and it is part of the process. So things like that, you know. So yeah, it is a challenge. Yes, but yeah, but I'm glad that at least what we need is keeping an open mind, you know, like and it is knowing religion, accepting a particular principle is a work of life. Don't decide it for now only. Like, we need to give ourselves space, think about many things. Like for example, in Christianity, homosexuality is a crime, right? Because for example, heterosexuality is kind of promoted among many religions because it also gives birth to a child, because it takes it further, right? But again, remember that giving birth to a child, if it is so important, then why is there discrimination for women who give birth to a child out of a wedlock or out of a marriage, if birthing a child is so important? But then again, we then put them in certain kind of structures, na? So I think wherever there is structures, wherever there is a saying na ki asas karayचं असं करायचं नाही, then it is problematic. I mean, that will be my understanding, because when you say that something you have to do and something you should not be doing, that means somebody is deciding for us. So we have to go through it to see that what exactly do we mean. Like worshipping a god but thinking ill of others, how does it work? Yeah, I would say that. Yeah. Okay. So doing feminist research, okay, till now what we have done is exactly, if you're doing feminist theory, what exactly are you bringing to the table? What is the way that you're looking at research, questioning the binary in terms of the self and the researcher? We have then also talked about questioning the binary between public and private, no, those kind of things. Binary, you need, it's like opposites, like you can't, if you're this, you can't be this, like it's a black and white kind of a thing. But we always say that we have to go for the gray. Life is not like that. Like for example, when you look at public and private, for example, मला सांगा कि घर और रास्ता, हाँ, इसमें पब्लिक कौन सा है, प्राइवेट कौन सा है? प्राइवेट घर है और पब्लिक रास्ता है. पर जो लोग रास्ते में रहते हैं, उनके लिए पब्लिक क्या है, प्राइवेट क्या है? हाँ, उनके लिए प्राइवेट, वो दोनों मिक्स होता है. तो ये डिवाइड, पर फिर भी वो उसमें ही वो स्पेस बनाते हैं. कैसे बनाते हैं? हाँ, वो अपना सामान रखते हैं, दे मेक अ शेड, यू नो, समथिंग, इसमें वहीं चूल्हा बना. सो देयर इज़ अ किचन, देयर इज़ अ लिविंग स्पेस, देयर इज़ अ बेदिंग स्पेस. So you create those spaces. So it is there in the public and the private, right? So, but here things are very clear. But you look at home. Home आप क्या बोलोगे? Private, है ना? Private space में, वो home में public कुछ है क्या? Think. What can you say to be a public space in your home? Becomes more public space. Okay, one. Okay. Anything else? In your everyday life, हर दिन relatives नहीं है, function नहीं है, everyday lives में अपने घर में क्या public हो सकता है, क्या private हो सकता है? Okay. 1, 2. Okay, okay. Okay, okay, but not, no, okay, okay. Yes. Perfect. Yes, that is true. Like when you look at Baitak, like when you look at your drawing room, yeah, it's a, for for many it's a private space, right? But if somebody guest comes, first thing क्या होता है, in many of our households the woman just moves from that place. She doesn't sit there unless and until she is a senior citizen. म्हणजे आई झाली या असं आजी या मदर इन लॉ, you know, those kind of spaces. So the woman of the household moves to where? To the kitchen. And if you come with if there's a family that will come, the male will sit there and the woman automatically they'll go to the kitchen or to the bedroom, right? So what I'm trying to say is that space, हे जो binary है public and private, sir, it is very contextual. It depends upon. So if it is just your family members, then that baitak becomes a private space. But again, it will again depend upon what they refer to as kin. If the father-in-law and the daughter-in-law are there in the same, you know, all of them are there, for the daughter-in-law there to sit on the sofa with her legs crossed, आता कोणतरी बस बसलं होतं ना आरामात असं नाही का, just to be comfortable. It's very difficult to do, many times not encouraged, if the father-in-law or the elder brother of her husband is sitting. So she won't sit in the sofa, she will sit down. Yeah. And that will also take long years. म्हणजे 15-20 वर्ष झालं का, then you can do that. But then the drawing room or the baitak or wherever is the living room, it's a very public space. So space, जे आर्किटेक्चरचं लोक करतात अर्बन पॉलिसीमध्ये, space is a very gendered thing, right? So there is again a very interesting book by धारावी, किसने लिखा था, Sharma, some Sharma, I forget, but she has written on why loiter, right? Loitering is what? It's a very English word कि ऐमे ही घूमना, how, what you do with canteen, ऐसे just we have a lot of time and we are roaming, right? But she talks about how those spaces are very gendered. है ना, की आपण रस्त्यामध्ये चालतोय असं, if two boys, two girls असं walk, it is not, but you always show, the girls always have to show that they are there on the streets because they have some work. म्हणजे आम्ही कॉलेजला जातो या कॉलेजहून येतो, ओनली असं टाइमपास करण्यासाठी आम्ही बसलोय, हा खूप कमी वेळा वी कॅन प्रोव्हाइड दॅट. बट फॉर द बॉयज इट हॅज अ मच लार्जर स्कोप. म्हणजे पानटपरीवर बसलं, देर इज नो स्टिग्मा टू दॅट बॉय, राईट? पानटपरीवर मुली जाऊन बसलं तर देर इज अ लॉट ऑफ स्टिग्मा टू दॅट. सो स्पेस इज जेंडर्ड, public space is gendered, private spaces are gendered, and this is where our feminism is coming up, right? So this is something that is a very, very important aspect of doing feminist research, to challenge the binary of public and private, right? So anything in terms of binary, khara khota, right, wrong, we need to be very careful. What exactly is this, right? Ask questions. Me say the most powerful thing is why, why. Ask, ka, sir. Ask, when the moment you start asking ka, you'll find many of us get very afraid. का म्हणजे असं सगळं असं पिटारा खुल जाता है ना, अनबॉक्सिंग, बिकॉज का मीन्स यू हैव टू गिव रैशनल एक्सप्लेनेशंस. वी ऑल आर different kinds of scientists, right? And even science students start with why. Why is this happening? The moment you ask questions, many things will become more clear, right? So the first point of doing research is to understand what we started the whole discussion with, is that gender is a very, very complex category, right? It cannot be reduced to a division in terms of man and woman, right? And because it is, I think some of you also talked about it as a social construct, right? It is a social construct, it is an intersectional aspect. But for example, is it only a social construct? No. Like for example, our gender we can also change. Like we use biology to change our gender also, right? So we need to be very, very careful. We need to be very, very aware when we are doing, say that we are doing feminist research, we are doing gender research, right? See that we don't essentialize things, right? Essentialize म्हणजे स्त्रियाच असं करणार, पुरुषच असं करणार, ते essentializing. We should be very, very careful about it, right? It's a very, very complex, and it is also like for example, if you read that book by Chanika Shah, there she has got lot of interviews, narratives that comes up, and one of the things that they always talked about as to how university spaces, college spaces are very very gendered, right? And in that, the way we dress, the way we are expected of dressing, right? The way we are expected of saying certain words and all those things then becomes extremely problematic for people who have different gender identities. So as we as teachers, you as students, are we having comfortable conversations over it? And I think before I left, we had a small discussion with one of your colleagues. The thing is, the only way to deal with these things is to have an open mind and to have conversation. We have to normalize conversations. म्हणजे याच्याबद्दल आपण बोलणारच नाही, हे असं नाही, हळू असं नाही. इट इज नॉर्मल, देर इज नथिंग रॉंग इन दॅट, right? We have to normalize things. So we have to normalize these gender diversity which is there and part of a life, right? So it's like that, right? Like now having an intercaste marriages or having a self-choice marriages is a very very common thing. But I remember when I got married 23 24 years back, we were introduced, I and Yogesh lafda couple hai asं lafda आणि असं की like always there is a stigma to it, you know, की intercaste म्हणजे, and as was an inter language, lot of inter thing happening. So there it lafda couple hai. So but now we don't say that, right? We say ki ha intercaste marriages, it's a very normalizing. Why does that happen? Because you find lot of people in that position. You find lot of people saying different languages at home. So what we are doing is normalizing things, right? So that's one of the important thing of doing feminist research. The second is, which I'll repeat again and again, is to question what is normal. Question what is given. हे सांगितलं की असं करायचं तर का? That ka is very very important. Question that. Because what it does is that if we start questioning what is normal, ती जी स्ट्रक्चरमध्ये आता कोण कोण येतं, कास्टमध्ये, क्लासमध्ये, हे जे इनइक्वालिटी आहे, जे आपल्याला नॉर्मल वाटतो, ते एक्सपोज होतो. सो वी हॅव टू क्वेश्चन दॅट की असं का? वाय इज दिस? वाय हॅज टू बी अ कास्ट? वाय इज देअर अन हायरकी? Why even after intercaste marriages, like for example Dr. Ambedkar talked about, if you have intercaste marriages, caste will break, right? It'll break. But why is it that after so many years of intercaste marriages still caste is so strong, right? Why is that? So are we not looking at caste, gender and patriarchy? So there's a lot of things which are very very important things happening. Same way with race, same way with sexuality, same way with language, same way with other kinds of ethnic identities and all. So whatever is said, the moment people say that oh asas asto, then a social scientist or a scientist should start thinking that there's something wrong in that. So wrong means always not in a negative sense, but we need to know the reason for it, right? So that is one. The other important part of doing feminist research is question power. म्हणजे सत्ताधारी positions. What is power? And power is not only in terms of that you are a political power ki asa authority positions मध्ये आहे ते नाही, but even in terms of power in our everyday life, every day that we do, that if somebody says something ki, then you make fun of it, say that oh you don't know how to talk, or and I used to do that it's only recently I've stopped this habit, that whenever you say something you always say oh I'm so sorry. Always apologize for being yourself, right? Okay, Arey yaar, I'm so sorry, asं nahi करायचं होतं मला. But this, what does it do is that it shows that you have already imbibed the power inequality which is there, and you apologize for being who you are, and you apologize for your thoughts, and that should never happen, right? So when you look at power relationships, like for example, I mean, one would say that when feminists talk about, they also talk about power in the whole notion of motherhood, right? म्हणजे आपल्याकडे, and I also gave a earlier reference, in many societies, I mean, I don't want to divide in West and East societies, motherhood is a very very important experience, right? There's a lot of, and for example in India you would also say that there's also like lot of mother worshipping. She's a very very important figure, right? But again, that I is important only within a particular context. It is only within a particular set of marriage, right? Outside marriage, if you're a I, you are not I. you are stigmatized. So again, this is something is very, very important. So it is not motherhood per se, but it is motherhood within a particular context, right? So what does it show is that it shows a power inequality which is there. So there could be many examples of this, right? Like for example, in a very different manner, like we always talk about the love that parents have for the kids and the kids have for the parents, no? So that's a very sacred space. आपण त्याच्यामध्ये power कशाला आणायचं? Many of the people say that of feminist. तो कशाला सत्ता आणते? हे तर किती divine आहे, हे तर किती नैसर्गिक आहे वगैरह. But tell me, I mean, I am now a parent to a son who is in 12th, right? Don't you think I will love him more if he gets a 90%? I would, right? Won't I be very happy if he gets very low marks? Won't I be very, see, ठीक आहे तू माझा मुलगा आहे, मी तू आवडतो, पण हे काय आहे? So there is a lot of friction in that, right? Don't you think if the parents are not doing anything much for you, you will feel very unhappy? There'll be a lot of fights if they don't agree to what you want and say. So what I'm trying to say is that somewhere there is this power inequality which is there, right? Or think about power which is there within couples, right? Husband, wife, friends, relationships. You don't go there, you come here, you come by 7, you don't talk to this person, you don't talk to that person, wear this, don't wear this. What is all this? This is all in terms of power. So what we are talking about? We are talking of power in intimate relationships. And त्याची extreme तुम्ही पाहिलं तर it could be domestic violence. So power in any form is something is very, very central to doing feminist research. It could also be in terms of the knowledge making process. Lot of work is happening in terms of teacher student असू शकतो, or in terms of if you want to do research in terms of which books are we reading, who are we citing. हे का तुम्ही पुस्तक पाहिलं, sociology students will understand this more, that when you read you have a list of references, right? आपण काय करतो, त्यांचं नाव त्यांचा अभ्यास घेऊन आपण रेफर करतो. This is called citation, referencing. But you know that many times people cite only those who belong to a particular class, particular caste, particular race. So there's a lot of work that is going on in feminist thing about changing the whole citational politics, that when I'm writing in English, am I also referring to, for example, if I'm writing on caste and gender in Maharashtra, so that's an article that I'm writing. Can I write that without referring to the local work that has been done in regional languages? I can't do that. But we do that. And that is related to power, because what am I doing? What is citation means? In the academic world, citation means our position as an academic researcher, academic becomes more consolidated. There's a lot of power that comes through it, right? Our promotions, our increments, everything is, and our reputation in the society, in the academic world, it's all there. So what are we going to do? So basically what I'm trying to say is that power is very, very core to feminist research. Without looking at power, you are not looking at anything, right? There's in any relationship. I'm not trying to devalue relationships, right? But what I'm trying to say that we need to understand that every relationship has a dimension of power which is there, which could come in terms of love expressed. की तुझं काळजी वाटते म्हणून मी असं करतो. It could be that, as simple as that, but it is controlled. So we need to understand where it is coming from. Like I remember one of the training programs, the Seva, the Sagra training program, is like whenever men, they were talking, whenever men leave home, they always say that, "Mi jato." Huh? But when women leave, many of them are saying, they sang that, "Mi jaun yuka." So it's always like, and it is very normal, है ना? But for the women, it is always, even if nobody is giving them permission, कि नहीं तू जा, तू नको जा, but we have been kind of socialized into saying that we always do things by asking permission. So there is power there. So are we thinking of that, right? So this is something, and just say there is a lot of change again within the family, and this is work done by Amartya Sen on entitlements. Okay, which kin part you are, your access to food. Just do a random survey of those for whichever, it need not necessarily be vegetarian or non-vegetarian. जो भी आप लोग खाते हो घर पे, which is the choicest dish. जैसे सोचो chicken है तो leg piece. Just randomly ask people in your home that if chicken is cooked and chicken leg pieces are limited, right? You can't have so many. limited. It has like 4 legs, right? So, how many of the girls have eaten the chicken pieces in terms of the leg, chicken leg? And if they have eaten, where they have eaten? And this random exercise I did, and you won't believe, Sanjay, many times I've heard girls की ते चिकन पीसेस कुठे खातात ते लेग पीसेस जेव्हा मामाच्याकडे जातात ते because there the girls as bhanji in that kin they are very important. Normal घरामध्ये if it is normal who gets the best of the pieces, and if you're a daughter फिर भी थोड़ा ठीक है, if you're a daughter in law तो position ही गया, and if you are the eldest daughter in law still there is something, but if you are the youngest gaya. But if you're youngest with lot of money, you get. If you're eldest without money, gaya. You know, if you are middle but having a son, yes. If you are eldest with money but no son, gaya. So what I'm trying to say it is contextual. You have to look into all these things. Check ये सचमुच में करके देखो. वेज है तो पनीर देखो. I don't know what else you eat. So I mean पनीर pieces बेचारा. I mean we don't. I mean ये जो एक्सपेरिमेंट है ना वो चिकन के साथ ही वो अच्छा जुड़ता है, पनीर के साथ नहीं जुड़ता, ठीक. सो द अदर थिंग, द फोर्थ और द फिफ्थ पॉइंट ऑफ डूइंग फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्च इज when we do research we always come across as something that we go like आता पण बघा की when I come I come की हां मला काहीतरी असं ग्रेट सांगायचं आहे, असं काही नाही, जे सगळ्यांनी लिहिले ते कोळा करून मी तुम्हाला सांगते है ना. सो चॉकलेट खायचे तर प्लीज लवकर खाऊन घ्या ते रॅपर. आय अंडरस्टँड. नो नो अँड दिस इज अ व्हेरी व्हॉट टू से अ व्हेरी interesting thing because my sister always used to say की if you are movie पाहताना तू चिप्स खाल्लं तर बघ ते कडकड होतं ना, तर मी असं हळू करून ते चिप्स टाकून आय टू सॉग इट अँड देन सो आय अंडरस्टँड व्हॉट यू फील, तर पटकन काढा आणि पटकन खाऊन टाका. एनिवे, सो व्हॉट आय वॉज ट्राइंग टू से इज दॅट ॲज रिसर्चर वेन वी गो, तरी पण वेळ लावतो बा. येस, okay, yes, okay. So as researchers when we go to the field, like अगर हम अर्बन एरिया से जाते हैं रूरल में तो ऐसे हमें देख के ही लगता है कि हम बाहर से आए हैं ना, जैसे हमारा झोला ऐसे. So many, especially in the social work schools and all, they say that you have to de-dress yourself, like don't wear those fashionable clothes, wear more salwar kameez, like those kind, and don't take don't show your Bisleri bottle right at the front. So these all they're trained, right? But what feminists are trying to do is, however you go, you change your dress, whatever your demeanor, the fact that तुम्ही आले तसं असं की हां तर तुम्ही सांगणार आम्ही लिहिणार, itself shows that you are in a differential power position, right? So doing feminist research is that ki how much ever you try, there will be power between you and the people that you are working on, right? So therefore what you have to do is minimize that position, minimize the difference which is there, right? So that is one part. But this happens when the researcher is of a privileged class, caste mana, privileged class mana, gender mana, and you are working with people who are in the marginalized, right? So if I am, like, for example, a researcher in Hyderabad University, so I go with all my baggage and I go and I say that so then anyway it will be like हैदराबादहून आली आहे नाही का, असं थोडं असं वेगळंच पडतो, असं नाही आपण डबा काढतो आणि ते टिश्यू असतो, तसं इट्स ऑल व्हेरी दिस. बट द क्वेश्चन दॅट कम्स इज लाईक, फॉर एक्झाम्पल, व्हॉट हॅपन्स इफ द रिसर्चर इज फ्रॉम द मार्जिनलाइज्ड कम्युनिटी and the researcher is working on someone who is very powerful, who is very privileged. So then again there is power relations. So this is something that we need to work with and be aware of these power differences which is there, right? And recently a student of mine is working on intercaste marriages, but what she has done is, interestingly, her argument is that till now what we have done is, when we're looking at intercaste marriages, we go and ask the girl who is, especially girl who is from the marginalized caste community, and ask her what is your experience of the intercaste marriage, right? So what she has done is, I was talking about social location, she has theorized herself as a Dalit girl, and now she is going into different villages in Maharashtra and trying to understand from the viewpoint of the upper caste male who have got married to a different caste woman. So her questioning comes from theorizing her location from being a Dalit girl, but with the privilege of being a university PhD student. You understand? So it is, so this is something that we need to be aware of, that it is always not a one way relationship. There is multiple relationships which are happening. So are we talking about that? So that is like one. The other is what earlier I talked about, Richanaga's work on Sangatin thing, where you write collaboratively. So one is the work that I did with my students, with write about something that students also know, I also know, and write about it. So writing collaboratively is another very important way to demystify the whole research process, demystify the process of writing. For example, जेव्हा published work येतो, like I said that Sanjay sir was reading out all those 10 articles or 11 articles that I have. तर तुम्हाला होतं अरे वा वा काय भारी भारी आर्टिकल्स आहे एवढं सगळं numbers. So but for it, and when you see the published work, you'll be wow wow अनुरेखाने किती छान लिहिलंय. पण for that published work to come, you have to work 7-8 months in advance, right? The whole process of not knowing what to write, रिव्ह्यू येणं, रेड मार्क्स येणं ते पेपरमध्ये, जसं तुमच्यावर आम्ही करतो, हे सगळं आमच्यावर पण होतं. ते रिव्ह्यूअर्स पाठवतात, हे असं का लिहिलं आहे, असं एक्झाम्पल नाही आहे, असं गॅप नाही आहे, असे ते सगळं प्रोसेस करून एक छान पब्लिश्ड वर्क येतो, राईट. बट वेन यू वर्क कोलॅबोरेटिव्हली, व्हॉट हॅपन्स इज दॅट की आपल्याला जे वाटतं की आपण खूप पॉवरफुल आहे, आपली पण जे वल्नरेबिलिटी आहे तेच पुढे येतो. आणि ते वल्नरेबिलिटीमधनं, वल्नरेबिलिटी म्हणजे कुठेतरी आपण एक वल्नरेबिलिटी काय म्हणू शकतो आपण, हां असं जे आपलं जे लॅकुनेस आहे ते सगळ्यांसमोर येतो, राईट. पण तिथून आपण कसं पॉवर घेऊ शकतो, तिथून कसं पॉवर म्हणजे कॉन्फिडन्स कसं घेऊ शकतो जेव्हा आपण एकत्र लिहितो, ते व्हेरी इंटरेस्टिंग आहे. तर तसं पण काम फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्चर्स करतात, राईट. सो not just working singly but working together. So many times when your teacher gives you group work, I don't know about you all, but many of my students are very unhappy. मॅडम तो येत नाही, मीच करते, माझं सगळं काम आहे का, असं सगळं. बट आय थिंक डुईंग ग्रुप वर्क मेक्स यू व्हेरी व्हेरी स्ट्रॉंग. वॉट इट डज इज दॅट इट काइंड्स ऑफ हाइड्स ऑल आर विकनेसेस, आणि आपल्या सगळ्यांची स्ट्रेंथ घेऊन वी क्रिएट समथिंग व्हेरी ब्युटिफुल, राईट. And feminist work talks about that. Like doing collaborative research work is one very interesting way of doing feminist research. Okay. To go on is that what does feminist research also demands? It demands methodological innovations. I told about time use surveys. The another very interesting methodological innovations that I have read, many of us are doing many things, is like I was talking about that Rethinking Methodologies, the book, Padmini Swaminathan. It's a very interesting book. There is this very young researcher called Ghazala. She has worked on urban neighborhoods in Delhi, but mostly Muslim neighborhoods. And she has used the methodology of walking and talking. So what she does is that she walks on the roads. Yeah. And whoever is interested, she talks about her research and asks them about the neighborhood dynamics. And she talks about, she brings in cars, she brings in what it is to be a young Muslim woman on the roads. So a lot of interesting things happening. Like for example, you walk on the road, right? Or next day you wear a sari and you walk on a road, for example, right? If it is Pune, I would have said FC road, but here whatever is a happening road, you walk. What happens? Then next day wear salwar kameez, next day wear jeans, next day wear a burqa and walk. And then one can see what are the different ways in which people reacted to you, and then make a, so we can do this in very interesting ways. Like one of my student in MA, he was talking about gender identity and all on cross dressing, right? And this was a semester 3 class with, we had done lot of discussions on gender खूप सारा, म्हणजे आपण पहिल्यापासूनच जेंडर खूप सारा बोललो. नंतर तो क्रॉस ड्रेसिंग आणि ते आयडेंटिटी असं बोलता बोलता ही वॉज स्टँडिंग बिहाइंड द पोडियम. And then he changed and he wore a wrap-around skirt and he came out and everybody was like, "Hey, asa ka hai? Asa ka ghalto tu?" Asa. So automatically all these years of that conditioning, and we couldn't see, many of us couldn't see this male as a cross-dresser, right, in the class. So what does it shows? It shows that how we are gendered, right? So in that way also one can do a lot of innovations, different वाय बिकॉज मेनी ऑफ द थिंग्स विच आर देअर इज व्हेरी इनविजिबल, आपल्याला समजत नाही. तर ते इनविजिबिलिटी क्रॅक करायला, ते इनविजिबिलिटीवर फोकस करायला, कॅन वी थिंक, बिकॉज ऑल आर मेथड्स. व्हॉट आर दीज मेथड्स? मेथड्स काय आहे? मेथड्स असं है कि जब अपन सब्जेक्ट्स पर जब हमें लगता है कि कुछ चीज़ें इंटरव्यू से नहीं निकलेगा, तो फोकस ग्रुप से निकलेगा क्या, तो वो एक नया मेथड आता है ना. तो मेथड हम खुद का भी डेवलप कर सकते हैं. वी डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द फील्ड, आपका जो फील्ड का डिमांड है उसके हिसाब से आप मेथड भी डेवलप कर सकते हो. हाँ, अब तक हमें बहुत रॉन्ग ट्रेनिंग दिया गया है कि जो मेथड है उसको हमें कैसे भी करके फील्ड में डालना है. ये गलत है. फील्ड का जो डिमांड है वही हमारा मेथड है. वी हैव टू रीवर्क ऑन द मेथड यूजिंग द फील्ड. Field is the prime, supreme, then is the method, right? So how can we, but when you're using a particular method, we have to be rigorous about what it says, right? But we can work with the method depending upon what is emerging from the field, because field cannot be put in a particular box. Like one of the feminist scholars say that ki अगोदरचे रिसर्च कसं होत होता की एक स्क्वेअर बॉक्स होता. हां, स्क्वेअर बॉक्समध्ये आपण राऊंड एक वस्तू त्याला फिट करायला जातो आणि सांगतो की अरे ह्याची एक्सपिरियन्स आणि माझी मेथड मॅचच करत नाही, म्हणजे याची एक्सपीरियंस नॉन वैलिड है. असं नहीं. अगर उसके एक्सपीरियंस राउंड है, आपका मेथड स्क्वायर नहीं हो सकता, आपका मेथड भी राउंड ही होना पड़ेगा, राइट. वी कैन डिस्कार्ड द एक्सपीरियंस बिकॉज आवर मेथड डजंट सपोर्ट इट. We have to change the method, not the experience. Experience is important. Okay, so this is the other point. The other important point of feminist research is social justice, right? Feminist research talks about research to bring about social change. That in feminist research हे जे differences आहे की academic world वेगळं, activism world वेगळं, change वेगळं, justice वेगळं असं नाही. आपल्या कामामधनं, आपल्या रिसर्चमधलं आपण काय बदल आणू शकतो हा खूप महत्त्वाचा आहे. जसं आता मी ते टीचर स्टुडंटबद्दल बोलत होते, मी त्याच्यावर रिसर्च करताना मी माझे स्टुडंट्स आणि माझ्या टीचरचं रिलेशनशिपवर काहीच काम नाही करणार असं नाही होऊ शकत, तर मी खोटं पडेल. ते जे तुमचं पहिल्या सत्रामध्ये एथिक्सचं पाठ होतं बघा, इट विल बी नॉन एथिकल. व्हॉट आय राईट, it has to be related to what I do, and what I write has to be related to more questions of justice, more question of change. Even if it means changing myself, I have to do it. जे positions मध्ये आपण आहोत, we have to change whatever things we can from that. So they also talk about how organically, म्हणजे symbiotically all these things are interrelated. Our research, activism, policy हे जुडलेलं आहे. आपल्याला फक्त आपण like I remember Sanjay's work, the EGS बद्दल he was talking about. He, while doing EGS research also, he was also doing lot of writing in newspapers, trying to bring about lot of information, expose the kind of corruption that was happening, right? So this is something which is very important that feminist researchers do, right? In the sense it is expected to do कि जे तुम्ही रिसर्च करतात ते कसं सामाजिक समाज में न्याय कैसे आ सकता है, चेंज कैसे आ सकता है, बदलाव कैसे आ सकता है, फॉर गुड, फॉर इक्वालिटी कैसा आ सकता है, इसके ऊपर भी वो जाना चाहिए. वो सिर्फ वो एकेडमिक रिसर्च होके नहीं रह सकता, तो वो फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्च नहीं हो सकता, राइट. सो दिस इज समथिंग विच इज important. Okay, there are few more. Before I go, any questions, comments? Quickly, I think we have another 15 minutes. 20 minutes. Yes, anything? Ask. काहीतरी आता ह्या ग्रुपमध्ये काहीतरी प्रश्न असेल. Even just ask, what did I eat for lunch? Just ask that. कुछ तो पूछो. Something. काय विचारायचं? नाही, आतापर्यंत वाई प्रश्नच पडला नाही तुम्हाला. ओके. but I'll wait. एक ना एक दिन तो आएगा question. Okay. So that's and this is I talked about ethics. Okay. And the other important point of doing feminist research is that uh, I did talk about, in the initial I talked about the epistemological, कुठून knowledge येतो, right? So that is something that we need to focus on in terms of doing feminist research, is the fact that feminist researcher says that it is just not about how you are doing that research. It is also important to understand that with whom are you doing the research. म्हणजे कोणाबरोबर तुम्ही ते काम करतात आणि ती जी काम आहे कसं तुम्ही ते रिप्रेझेंट करतात, म्हणजे लिहिताना पण तुम्ही कसं ते लिहितात, राईट? हाऊ डू यू राईट अबाउट इट? अँड फॉर अ व्हेरी लाँग टाईम द मेजर चॅलेंज दॅट आय हॅड विथ दिस काइंड ऑफ अ पॉईंट वॉज फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्चर्स वर रायटिंग अबाउट दिस, म्हणजे मेथोलॉजी बुकमध्ये फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्च मेथोलॉजीमध्ये हा एक्झाम्पल भरपूर वेळा यायचे, पण आय शू नॉट फाइंड पॅरलल रीडिंग्स फॉर इट. म्हणजे एक कुठलं मोठं आपला एक म्हणजे फॉर ॲकॅडमिक्स एक मोठं चूक काय होतं आपल्याकडनं, की आपण एंड प्रोडक्ट सगळं लिहितो पण ती प्रोसेसबद्दल आपण लिहित नाही. मेथोडॉलॉजिकली आपल्याकडे जास्त आर्टिकल्स नाही आहे. आपल्याला हे माहिती आहे की हा मेथड असं वापरायचं, पण इंटरव्ह्यू करताना काय होतो म्हणजे इन रिअल ते आपल्याकडे खूप कमी आपण लिहितो. मेथोडॉलॉजी कसं मेसी आहे, म्हणजे ते आपण लिहिलं का सगळ्यांना कळेल की मी किती वेळा फेल झालो, त्याच्यामुळे आपण ते लिहित नाही. कसं पण ते फेलियरमध्येच कसं आपण ते प्रॉब्लेमटाईज करतो, ते खूप सुंदर एक स्किल आहे. पण व्हेरी रिसेंटली आय थिंक इट वॉज 2 years बॅक दॅट आय गॉट ॲक्सेस टू this article, which is called title Women, Genocide and Memory, the Ethics of Feminist Ethnography. So it is by Janet Jacobs. What was interesting about this is, you all know about World War II, some ideas. So do you know a place called Auschwitz? Yes. So this was a concentration camp, like all things happening and a lot of but after of course everything happened, now this is like a museum. And so it's a very very painful, very important piece of history, but very painful. Okay, so this woman Janet, from the article that I knew, she herself is a Jewish woman, right? And she went to do research on that, and her method was photography. And she was very clear about she's going to focus on women's, म्हणजे त्या ऑस्विचमध्ये कसं आहे, they have like shoes, असे ते discarded shoes, पण एक सेक्शन वुमन्स आहे, एक चिल्ड्रन्स आहे, असं वस्तू वगैरे असतात, फोटोग्राफ्स असतात, ते एक्सपेरिमेंट्सचे ते सगळं अशी फोटोग्राफ्स. आणि शी वॉन्टेड टू लुक ॲट टेक फोटोग्राफ्स ऑफ दोज टू हाऊ वुमेन्स मेमोरी गेट्स रिप्रेझेंटेड देअर, सो दॅट जेनोसाईड हे सगळं करून तिचं काम होतं. बट वॉट वॉज इंटरेस्टिंग ॲज अ टीचर, एस्पेशली इफ आय एम टीचिंग रिसर्च मेथोलॉजी, फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्च मेथोलॉजी, अँड दिस इज अबाउट एस्पेशली हाऊ डू आय राईट अबाउट इट, हाऊ डू आय रिप्रेझेंट. आणि हे कधी येतो, सगळे रिसर्चमध्ये येत नाही, पण जेव्हा तुम्ही रिसर्च अशी गोष्टीवर करतात ज्याच्यामध्ये पेन आहे, ट्रॉमा आहे, सच ॲज सेक्शुअल व्हायलन्स असू शकतो, मास रेप्स का केसेस असू शकता, पार्टीशन, कम्युनल राइट्स, ये सब जो एक्सपीरियंसेस है वो बहुत ट्रॉमाटाइज्ड है ना, और वो लार्ज स्केल में होता है. वी आर नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट वन, बट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट कम्युनिटी व्हायलन्स, सिव्हिल वॉर, याच्यावर जेव्हा आपण काम करतो अशी प्रश्न खूप येतात. सो इट इज नॉट फॉर ऑल, बट इट वाईट आय थॉट इट इज इम्पॉर्टंट टू मेन्शन इवन नाव. Maybe some of you won't even think this is relevant, but I think in the long run it is important, especially also when you said photography. I was just I thought this example would work, is because what she says is that when as a Jewish woman she goes in, she has a dual multiple identity now. What? She's a Jewish woman, but her history is that of the Holocaust history. She sees her representations of her earlier generations done there, but she's also a researcher. But she says that जेव्हा मी जायची ते सगळं करायची, इनिशियली आय वॉज अ ज्युइश वुमन, पण जेव्हा मी ते फोटोग्राफ ठेवायचं आणि बघायची कुठलं लाईट येतं, कसं येतं, आय बिकम व्हेरी इन्स्ट्रुमेंटल बिकॉज आय नीड दॅट राईट कॅप्चर, राईट? And now I have all these photographs. I go back to my office room, which is in US, and then I'm like out of that site. Yeah? And how do I want that pictures to be shown? What picture should I show? Because the moment you show a picture, you create a certain kind of imagery. राईट. एक इमेज येतो बघा, एक ते आपण एक्सरसाइज करतो ना, एक इमेज दाखवतो आणि सांगतो की टेल व्हॉट यू थिंक, फटाफट असे. So she says that we have to be very careful with such kind of imagery. What does it represent? So what happens is, as researchers we have lot of power. जेव्हा आपण सगळं ते नॅरेटिव्स लिहितो, कसं आपण जे लिहितो त्याच रिप्रेझेंटेशन होऊन जातो. रिप्रेझेंट म्हणजे आपण त्याचं एक वर्णना देतो आणि त्याला एक काल्पनिक रूप देतो. आणि तेच काल्पनिक रूप जोपर्यंत तुम्ही तिथे जाणार नाही, तुम्हाला तेच खरं वाटेल. राईट. So as researchers we have to be very careful of what we are writing. This goes same with if you're doing any assignments, you're writing anything na. So when you're writing, it is very powerful. ये जो है ना वो बहुत powerful है. So when you're writing that, how are you representing, what words are you using? It all represents power. That in broad terms it means that doing research is just not in the fact of doing research, but doing what research, how you are doing that research, how have you collected the data, what is your method, how are you writing about it. All this makes lot of sense. So जेव्हा आपण जेंडर कॅपॅसिटी बिल्डिंग बद्दल बोलतो, हा फक्त हा सेशन इम्पॉर्टंट नाही आहे. यू हॅव टू लुक एट वॉट गोज बिफोर इट, वॉट गोज आफ्टर इट, वॉट हॅपन्स टू युअर लाईफ आफ्टर इट. Everything then gets connected. How do you write about it? How do you interact with your friends about it? It's all part of the larger ecosystem. So that contextual, I mean, this is broadly, but again, if you go back to research, it means that what you're doing of research is just not the topic itself, but the whole process of it. म्हणजे आपण फक्त काय करतो की आपल्याला वाटतो की फक्त फील्डवर्कच इम्पॉर्टंट आहे का थिसिसच इम्पॉर्टंट आहे, असं नाही. आपण जेव्हा स्टार्ट करतो, पूर्ण प्रोसेस थिसिस लिहितो, नंतर त्याचं काय करतो आणि कसं लिहितो, हे सगळं इम्पॉर्टंट आहे. राईट. डू यू टेक बॅक युअर वर्क टू द पीपल दॅट यू हॅव वर्कड विथ. राईट. बिकॉज इन फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्च वॉट दे से इज दॅट हाऊ मच एवर पेन आय हॅव, की मी फॉर एक्झाम्पल आय रिमेंबर वेन आय वेंट फर्स्ट टू द फील्ड EGSचं कामं, मी ते गरिबी आणि सगळं म्हणून खूप रडली आणि मी माझ्या गाईडला फोन केलं. असं नाही का इमोशनल अँड यू कम फ्रॉम अ पर्टिक्युलर प्रिव्हिलेज पोझिशन, आपल्याला तेवढं गरिबी माहिती नसतो आणि हे, बट ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम यू बिकम की हाँ ये भी रहता है वो भी रहता है. बट द थिंग इज व्हेन आई गो टू द फील्ड आई ऑलवेज हैव द पावर टू कम बैक. म्हणजे मी ते 10 दिवस, 1 हफ्ता या 1 साल उनके साथ रहूँगी, काम करूँगी, पर एट द एंड आई नो दैट आई कैन कम बैक. But the people that we are doing research on, they would be there. So this power, are we aware of it? आणि जे कामं करतो आपण परत आपण त्यांना जाऊन दाखवतो का. मी का सांगते की बिकॉज इट इज़ अ वेरी प्रिविलेज पोजिशन टू बी कॉन्फिडेंट दैट जो भी आएगा आपको क्वेश्चन पूछेगा वो लोग आपको आंसर करेंगे ही. हमारे साथ ऐसे कोई, नो वन कैन टेक दिस. लाइक आई टेल यू हु आर द वर्स्ट रेस्पॉन्डन्स ॲकॅडमिक्स. ॲकॅडमिक्सला म्हणजे आपलं प्राध्यापक आपल्या ग्रुपमध्ये असं खूप असतो की आपल्यावर कोणी अभ्यास केलं का आपण कधीच आन्सर देत नाही. वी नेवर गिव्ह आन्सर्स. लाईक वाय सो मेनी क्वेश्चन्स वी आस्क. बिकॉज बट वी फील इफ दे आर पुअर अँड मार्जिनलाइज, आपण कधी पण जाऊ शकतो त्यांच्या घरात सांगू, अरे सांगा काय झालं तुमच्याकडं. राईट. सो दिस पॉवर इक्वेशन्स जे आहे, परत आपण ती जे काम केले त्यांच्याकडे घेऊन जातोय का, त्यांच्याबरोबर काम करतोय का, हे सगळं प्रश्न जे दुसरे हो, आय थिंक मोस्ट ऑफ द रिसर्चर्स डोंट डू इट, बट फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्च म्हणजे ॲटलीस्ट बुक में they demand of it that you have to do that. That are you bringing a research back to the group, right? So this is something which is very, very important. The other important aspect is that who are the people who are producing knowledge, right? So here I gave you some examples, but here the specific examples is that are we looking at the works of Dalit women? Are we looking at the works of Adivasi women? Are we looking at the works of black women? हे सगळं की ज्ञान निर्मितीचं प्रोसेसमध्ये कोण असतात आणि ते मोस्ट ऑफ द टाईम जे पॉवरफुल पीपल आहे सगळ्या वर्ल्डमध्ये, जे पॉवरफुल पीपल आहे सत्ताधारी पक्ष, तेच लिहितात, तेच एकमेकांशी बोलतात आणि तेच सांगतात की हेच खरं आहे. पण व्हॉट इज द एक्सपिरियन्स ऑफ असं एक फेमिनिस्ट याच्यामध्ये आहे की जेव्हा आपण वर्ल्डला, इफ यू वॉन्ट टू लुक ॲट द वर्ल्ड, विश्वला, if you look up from the world from people who are here, right, it will give you a like a narrow thing. But if you look to the world from people who are at the bottom, they will give you a wide thing, right? So this is the perspective that we are looking for, that even if we are privileged, we have to look from the standpoint of those who are the most marginalized. I think maybe Swati, because she's also aspect of feminist mythology, maybe she'll talk about standpoints. I won't go much into detail, but that is what is needed. That black feminist standpoint, manje kai, that are we looking at the society in US from the perspective of a black woman? Black woman's experience ka hai, that race, she's black, she's marginalized. Gender, she is woman, she's marginalized. Class, she's poor, she's marginalized. Same way with Dalit women. But again, not all black women are same. There are rich black women also. There are employed Dalit women also, right? So again, we need to be very, very careful of making these as homogeneous categories. Okay, take important point ahe. Okay, I think last one point. I think with that we can complete my part. Among many things, what does a feminist researcher demands? If I have to define myself, identify myself as a feminist researcher, what is one core thing that I need? It goes back to what I was saying in terms of who am I? That a feminist researcher has to be reflexive. Reflexive manje kai? Reflexive manje constantly looking back at your own self, about who you are. How are you bringing your power, position, authority? So this is something is important. And here we are talking not only in terms of general, but also in terms of the research process. Research process मध्ये काय आहे सगळं हे रिफ्लेक्सिव्हिटी. आणि हा फक्त फेमिनिस्टमध्ये नाही, म्हणजे यू सी इट इज वन थिंग that this is a workshop. I don't know how many of you will take up feminist research or anything in the longer run. I don't know about that, but more is always welcome. But as I said, feminism is one important aspect that kinds of makes you think about your own self, right? So I think that is something which is very important. Be honest to your own self. म्हणजे सगळ्यांशी तुम्ही खोटं बोलू शकतात, फक्त स्वतःशी खोटं नहीं बोलू शकत, राइट? लाइक चीटिंग भी अगर करते हैं हम, वर्ल्ड को हम बता सकते हैं कि हमने चीटिंग नहीं किया, पर हमें पता है ना, वी नो दैट वी हैव चीटेड. सेम इज विथ जेंडर फेमिनिस्ट. दैट यू कॅन से टू एव्हरी वन दॅट ओ आय एम अ फेमिनिस्ट, मी असं काय, मी घरी कधीच असं करत नाही, माझी सिस्टरला असं कामच करू देत नाही, मीच करते का, मी कधीच असं जातीवर विश्वास करत नाही असं. पण ॲट द एंड तुम्हाला माहिती आहे का, मला स्वतःला माझ्याबद्दल माहिती आहे. तर ती रिफ्लेक्सिव्हिटी, आय डोंट केअर वॉट फील्ड दॅट यू गो, बट दिस प्लीज बी ऑनेस्ट. हे जे रिफ्लेक्सिविटी है दैट विल हेल्प यू डू एनी रिसर्च. कोई भी काम आप बहुत अच्छा से कर सकते हो जब आप अपने आप से ही सच बोलोगे. ये ज़्यादा फिलोसॉफिकल हो गया ना. ओके, आई थिंक विद दिस आई डोंट हैव एनीथिंग एल्स. आई मीन बहुत है, बट आई थिंक इतना काफ़ी है, एक सेशन एक दिन के लिए काफ़ी है. Yes, so any questions, comments, observation? Yeah, please. Okay, first thing, life lesson for everyone. There is no right question, no wrong question. Every question is a valid question. Okay? Never start with saying that I did this mistake for very long. Don't do this. Yes? Yeah. Many instances, but I think I'll just share recently what was there without going into very much details. So there was this in Hyderabad, this was in Hyderabad University. So many students, even if I'm not there in the sexual harassment committee or anything, but generally after class and all, I've got a lot of students, we talk a lot, chai, chai and gappa is like something that we keep on doing. But there was this case where after 3-4 months, there was this experience where the girl feels confident of talking about a sexual harassment that took place and all, and then I encouraged her to meet the right people, write letters, everything, but it did not work out. And the way the committee reacted, they did not even take the case, and the way the committee reacted was very stupid, if I can use that word here. But then this girl writes back saying that to the concerned authority, that how do you then define sexual harassment? And then the committee member comes up to me, says that, see, how are these girls responding? And I told her, I think this is because we are ourselves failing. And I felt so, what do you say, resourceless and powerless, and associate professor, Hyderabad. I really felt that I was so sorry that I could not do anything. Yeah, yeah. I mean, lot of cases that because discrimination, harassment has got different parameters. Like for someone, maybe असं आपण नाही का हाय असं करतो, maybe for someone it is not harassment. Yeah, but for someone doing like this is problematic. So every time I say that everybody has different standards, different components. Konala hi beautiful karna, maybe she wouldn't mind, but some may mind. So I think what is important is even to be shared, because everybody doesn't know what you expect and what you don't. Okay, there are some things which are just not there. I mean, like jabardasti hug karna, so that is like harassment, right? But for some, a hug or a hi beautiful, for some it is okay, for some it is not. So the first time you hear it from someone, if you're okay with it, just go ahead. If you're not okay with it, please tell that person then and there. You have to, because even boys need some cues. Yeah, you can't just, I mean, so that's what I'm saying. The moment you feel, and this is not part of gender building, but I always make it a point to say to all, anytime I'm with young friends like you, young students, in a relationship, the moment you feel uncomfortable, please walk out. It is both for the male, female and all genders present here. मी त्याच्याबरोबर राहील, तो चेंज होईल नाही होत, तो बदलून जाईल नाही होत. Okay, you will be, both will be better off in the longer run. लोकांचा मेमरी खूप शॉर्ट आहे. लोक नाही, सिरियसली, people will forget. If you think that now if I break, what will people say, असं स्टिग्मा आहे, ते काय बनल, आता याच्याबरोबर जात होती आता नाही जात, forget it. It's your life is more important than that. If you are uncomfortable, any one point, if you are uncomfortable, and this goes for all of you, right? All of you, if you are uncomfortable, ask to share passwords, माझ्यावर विश्वास करत नाही का, हे सगळं जे गोष्ट आहे ना, please walk away. And it is a bedrock of violence. And I'm very sad that earlier times are, many of us didn't tell to each other these, but it is very important. Okay, so again, gyan bas. Yeah. First thing, of course there would be biases. Of course there would be, as I told you, the moment you decide on researching on something, certain things will come up. One way to do it would be like what I said about strong objectivity. What is strong? You will learn the theory later, but basically it means that the more you are clear about your subjectivity, म्हणजे मला असं होतंय, I am getting emotionally involved, write that methodologically. We can't what to say, erase that. म्हणजे मला काहीच होत नाही असं नाही, होतं आणि मी ते लिहिते, आणि हे जे प्रश्न येतो ह्या कॉन्टेक्स्टमधनंच येतो. You understood? So we have to be upfront and write about it and accept that we are emotionally involved. It is sometimes it is very difficult not to be emotionally involved, especially, again, it depends on the kind of you are doing, research area that you are doing. It's not possible to, I mean, not everything will be emotionally involved, but if you're doing it something which is very painful and very sensitive, we are humans. Of course, we will become emotional. So this objectivity, subjectivity there's a huge debate. So hopefully, as you grow, into more into sociology, if you are from the discipline, so then you will know more. But for now, it is. I think if I say this was is more than enough, that हा एक खोटं डिवाइड आहे की आपण ऑब्जेक्टिव्ह राहू शकतो आणि राहायचं कसं ते पहिले जे असतात पॉझिटिव्हिस्ट दे वुड टॉक अबाउट इट बट द रियालिटी इज दॅट वी आर देअर विथ ऑल आर बॅगेजेस आपण त्या फील्डमध्ये आहोत तर आपल्याला ते मान्य करावं लागेल आणि मान्य करून मेथडॉलॉजीमध्ये लिहिणं आणि ते कसं रिसर्च क्वेश्चन्सला एफेक्ट करतो हा लिहिणं हा महत्त्वाचं आहे येस scope in feminist research, first you'll become a wonderful person. That's the yeah, scope is what? Scope is a lot of grassroots level NGOs working, lot of documentation centers, a lot of corporate world who are working on gender issues. But I can't, or teaching, research, all these are there. But lot of government institutions now want researchers. But one can't guarantee that in an institution you'll be there'll be a lot of space to be the kind of feminist that you want to be, but we need to, as feminists, do negotiate with it, negotiation karke. National platforms, but after that she also want to participate. Nation building. Nation building, I think, you see, it is a misnomer. मला असं वाटतं की नेशन बिल्डिंगचा आपल्याकडे खूप छोटा परिभाषा आहे दॅट ओनली you need to be in politics to be builders of the nation. I think what we do in our everyday lives, right, in that way we are, if we work towards the causes of social justice, we are building the nation. So that's the first part. Second, if you want to be known internationally and nationally, read, write, and engage, ask questions. Why? And of course there is a set path, like you join a college, do well, get a net PhD, write, publish, go to conferences. So it would be all, but I think more than that, if we try to bring about good change in our own selves and have good conversations, build or question the normality of things, question what is given, I think we are building the nation, right? Yeah. Thank you. त्या बाजूने आला पहिला प्रश्न. मुलींनी लग्न करताना ऑफकोर्स म्हणजे पहिल्यापासूनच तसंच असं असं आपल्याला बोललं जातं की मुलं मोठं पाहिजे, मुलगी आय मीन तसं काही सायंटिफिक रिझन तर मला तरी माहिती नाही. काय लोक असं म्हणतात की मुली मॅच्युअर्ड त्यांची माइंडमध्ये चांगला लवकर होतात, मुलांना खूप वेळ लागतो. म्हणजे आय मीन नाही, सिरियसली मुलं, I have a feeling that no, I have a yes. This is an important point. I have a feeling that men refuse to grow up. की त्यांना म्हणजे लहानपणी जसं आई सांभाळायची तसंच पार्टनर पण सांभाळायचं असं. आय थिंक दे वॉन्ट टू बी टेकन केअर ऑफ, अँड वुमेन नाव वॉन्ट टू बी लाईक free and just go. So therefore it could be something, but I think that is a very wrong way of understanding. I think it is at the end, it is what you feel for a person in terms of whether your ideas, right, can match the other person's ideas. So in that context, gender, age, caste, class should not matter, ethnicity, anything. It will not matter. So I think it's very interesting that you're asking this question, and I think it's really good. I think that is what. Yes. झालीच आहे. खूप खूप झालंय. खूप झालंय, खूप झालंय. जसं आणि काय काय फेमिनिस्टनी जसं मी आता काय केलंय की मी माझं आडनाव चेंज नाही केलंय, पण माझं योगेशचं आडनाव मी जॉईन केलं. तर आता मी अनुरेखा चारी वाघ आहे. तर नवीन आडनाव आहे. चारी वाघमध्ये एक होतं की ते एकत्र लिहितात आणि त्यांना समजतच नाही की कुठला कास्ट आहे, विच इज व्हेरी गुड. there is no surname like चारी वाघ, but that is my surname. But still you see पितृसत्ता कसं चालतं. My son's surname is still वाघ ना. So I mean केलं आपण अर्धवटच आहे. I don't agree. I mean maybe I don't know much of biology, so I can't make a comment on that. But I think it is similar to what they say that म्हणजे तसं असलं तर why is there so much of pressure on boys being more taller than girls that they want to get married? Why? I mean, can it be the other way around? It doesn't matter. They can be of equal height. Anybody can be. So, but we are kind of streamlined ना, असं streamlinedच करतोय की आपण हजबंड पार्टनर्स पाहिजे तर आपल्याला माझ्यापेक्षा हायटेड पाहिजे. Or men are taught that if your wife is taller than you, that means you are not a man enough. And it creates lot of issues. म्हणजे जे खूप सारा ते then the wives don't wear heels. So this and what happens that initially it may be like small matter, but in the long run it adds to many things, and it's a prime reason for domestic violence, very high. So I think the best part is like the only hope is you all and countless of young people like you. You are our hope. I mean, we did little in our lives. We followed many conventions, but you are there who have so much of power to change, like, and redefine things. Yeah. So तसंच आहे. आता इस्रायलमध्ये पाहिले तर सगळे आहे, मुली पण आहे. या सो आय थिंक हां प्रमाण कमी आहे इन द टर्म्स दॅट किती मुली नॅशनल सर्व्हिस म्हणजे डिफेन्समध्ये जातात ते पण प्रमाण अल्कम किती मुली जातात. परत ते खूप आहे की मुली वुमेन आर मोर फ्रेजाईल, वुमेन असं वीक आहे असं सगळं, आणि वुमेनचं काम काय आहे की रिप्रोडक्शन करणं. पण आय थिंक अदर इश्यू जे आपण बोलत नाही आणि बोलतो तर एकदम कमी याच्यामध्ये बोलतो की कुठे ना कुठे एक असं धारणा आहे, एक असं अजम्पशन आहे की इफ देर आर वुमेन ऑन द फील्ड इन द बॅरक्स अँड ऑल इट विल डिस्ट्रॅक्ट मेन. ती जी वुमेनची बॉडीला जे सेक्शुअलाइज केलं आहे की सेक्शुअलिटीचं रिलेटेड आहे त्याच्यामध्ये प्रॉब्लेमॅटिक आहे. आणि मी हा का सांगते, लाईक फॉर एक्झाम्पल we all know that different parts of the woman body are sexualized, right? So I just want you all to think that in itself म्हणजे अपने आप में many parts of the body need not be part of being sexual, right? तो जेवढं हम like for example if you look at the breast, it's very sexualized. When you look at mother feeding the child, it is not sexual. So in reality the breast doesn't have sexuality, but what we put into that, then it becomes. So can we think of it in these terms? Can we rethink of the way we think of our own body? You know, so आपण त्या बॉडी पार्ट्स त्याच्यावर जो एक भार असतो, ऑनर, इज्जत, हे सगळं त्याच्यावर आपण खूप कुठून त्या बॉडीला असं धरून ठेवतो नाही का. तर ते रिलीज कसं करू शकतो आपण. At the end anything can be sexual, anything can be sexual, even one fingernail could be sexual in that matter if you take it in the whole context, anything. But can we go beyond that? Can we think about how do we understand the body? That's a much bigger question. Smaller question is, are women allowed to go to the field? Yeah, larger question is, how do we view the woman's body there? They important ahe. Yes. Hi. हाँ, ये वही मैंने कहा ना कि फेमिनिस्ट रिसर्च सिर्फ एक रिसर्च करने का बात नहीं कर रहा है, पॉलिसी चेंज के ऊपर भी बात कर रहा है. तो वो पार्ट पॉलिसी चेंज में आएगा कि कितना हम प्रेशर डाल सकते हैं हायर अथॉरिटीज़ पर कि ये सब चेंज हो. बिकॉज एट द एंड हम इंसान हैं, हमें अगर ट्रेनिंग दिया जाता है तो हर बॉडी उसके लिए तैयार होता ही है. तो या Yes, and but I would disagree with your statement saying that it is a safe place. When Geeta comes, ask her this because one of her student has worked on the digital spaces and how challenging it is for girls and of different sexual identities, marginalized identities, to say their own ideas. आणि खूप टार्गेटिंग होतो, खूप वेन यू लुक ॲट दोज ट्रोलिंग खूप सेक्शुअलाइज्ड खूप हे होतं. सो इट इज नॉट अ सेफ स्पेस, so it is not inclusive, so we have to be very very careful about that. Okay, so pictures get morphed, it gets sold, like a lot of things happening. And I remember Geeta thing because the students MPhilचं मी evaluate केलं होतं. Very interesting work, so just ask her, don't forget, ask her that. Yes. हे त्याचं खूप वेगळं वेगळं आन्सर आहे, पण एक म्हणजे व्हेरी इंटरेस्टिंग रिसर्च असं हरियाणा सब में जा रहा है कि वेअर मेन आर फाय बिकॉज ऑफ द व्हेरी डिस्क्रिमिनेटिव्ह सेक्स रेशिओ. हां, मुलांना तिथे मुली भेटत नाही, राईट. आणि दुसरं कसं आहे की जे एम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट्स आहेत ते खूप कमी झाले आहेत आणि शेतीमध्ये खूप काम करावं लागतो, म्हणून खूप पॅरेंट्स जे आहे, जे मुलींचे पॅरेंट्स आहे ते शेती करणारे मुलांना मुली देत नहीं. कसं खूप हाँ, क्योंकि खूब नहीं नहीं बहुत लेबर करना पड़ता है, काम करना पड़ता है. तो वहाँ के लड़के बहुत बार क्या करते हैं कि बाहर के स्टेट से नॉर्थ ईस्ट मधनं, ओरिसामधनं, बेंगॉलमधलं जे गरीब घरातली जी मुली असतात त्यांच्याशी ते लग्न करतात. तर आणि ते इथे येतात तेव्हा ते कुठल्याही कास्ट असू द्या, जे मुली यायला तयार आहे तिथे पैसे देऊन ते येतात आणि तिथे ते खूप काम करावं लागतं त्यांना आणि खूप कंट्रोल होतो. ते एक वेगळा विषय, ते एक पार्ट आहे तुझं आन्सर, तुझं क्वेश्चनचं. दुसरं जे महत्त्वाचं आहे ते त्याच्यासाठी तुला डॉक्टर आंबेडकरांचं वर्क्स अभ्यास करावा लागेल. डॉक्टर आंबेडकर काय म्हणाले की वुमेन आर द गेटवेज ऑफ द कास्ट सिस्टम. म्हणजे जाति को कंटिन्यू करना, वैसे बोलते हैं कि जाति को कंटिन्यू करने में वुमेन का जो कास्ट है, वुमेन का जो एक रोल है बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है. क्योंकि वही दूसरी जो भी कास्ट में शादी करती है वो कास्ट में वो रिप्रोडक्शन करती है. तो उसका जो रिप्रोडक्टिव लेबर है, उसका जो रिप्रोडक्टिव पावर है वो बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है. ठीक है, तो उसके वजह से ऐसे देखा जाता है कि लड़के को कंपैरेटिवली ईजियर बोलते हैं कि तुम जाके बाहर कोई भी दूसरे से शादी करो, आ जाओ, क्योंकि वो जो बच्चा होता है वो उसके फादर के कास्ट से आगे जाता है, मदर के कास्ट का नहीं. तो इसीलिए वुमेन को एंकरेज नहीं करते. इट्स अभी तो लीला दुबे का एक आर्टिकल है, एक बहुत बड़ा काम है, सीड अर्थ मेटाफॉर, तो वो थोड़ा देखो, उसमें बहुत सारा रेफरेंस मिल जाएगा. और जस्ट टू एंड, जो संजय सर भी बोल रहे थे कि एट द एंड फेमिनिज्म, वन इज़ नॉट बॉर्न अ फेमिनिस्ट. म्हणजे जो पैदा होता है वो फेमिनिस्ट होके पैदा होता है, ऐसा नहीं है. और जस्ट बिकॉज आई एम अ वुमेन आई एम अ फेमिनिस्ट, ऐसा नहीं है, है ना. वन इज़ नॉट बॉर्न अ फेमिनिस्ट बट वन इज़ मेड अ फेमिनिस्ट. हर किसी को इर्रेस्पेक्टिव ऑफ जेंडर काम करना पड़ता है खुद के ऊपर फेमिनिस्ट बनने के लिए. yes. हाँ, थँक्यू सो मच. थँक्यू थँक्यू.
धन्यवाद मॅडम. आजच्या या वर्कशॉपसाठी डॉक्टर अनुरेखाचार्य वाघ मॅडम आल्यात. हैदराबादमधून त्या ऑफलाईन आपल्याला अवेलेबल झाल्यात आणि त्यांनी खूपच चांगल्या पद्धतीने वेगळ्या प्रकारच्या थिअरीज, अनुभव किंवा आपल्या कुटुंबापासून येणारे अनुभव इंग्लिश, मराठी, हिंदी अशा तिन्ही लँग्वेजमध्ये सांगितल्याबद्दल मॅडमचे सोशॉलॉजी डिपार्टमेंट आणि KTCM कॉलेजकडून फार फार आभार मानतो. थँक्यू मॅडम, थँक्यू सर.
गुड आफ्टरनून एव्हरीबडी. माय नेम इज भक्तिप्रिया. सो आमचा जो ग्रुप आहे तो आहे ABC. तर आमच्या ग्रुपचा जो टॉपिक आहे तो आहे, प्लीज सगळ्यांनी लक्ष द्या. तर आमचा टॉपिक आहे महिला सशक्तीकरण आणि सामाजिक बंधने. तर मग या ॲक्टमधून आम्हाला हे दाखवायचे की ज्या महिला आहेत, ज्या मुली आहेत, त्यांच्यावर जी बंधने समाजामुळे आपल्यावर लागतात किंवा आपले जे पॅरेंट्स आहेत जे आपल्या घरापासूनच आपल्याला बंधनं लावतात, घरातून बाहेर जाण्यापासून, घराच्या आत येण्यापासून, बसण्या उठण्यापासून सगळ्याच गोष्टी. तर यामध्ये आम्हाला दाखवायचं आहे नक्की मुलगा आणि मुलगी या दोघांमध्ये जो डिफरन्स क्रिएट केला जातो तो आम्हाला या नाटकामधून दाखवायचा आहे. सो द टीम मेंबर्स नेम:
मनोज भगत,
कविता शेवरे,
युवराज गोसावी,
शीतल पवार. शीतल पवार.
पप्पा काही मैत्रिणी मला बाहेर बोलवत आहे, जाऊ का?
नाही.
का? प्लीज
का बरं?
पप्पा जाऊ द्या ना, पार्टीला बोलवत आहे.
नाही जाऊ शकत.
का पप्पा जाऊ द्या ना.
अजिबात नाही. मुलीचे संस्कार आहे का तिने पार्टी करायला जावं?
पप्पा भाऊ जाऊ शकतो तर मी का जाऊ शकत
हो,
नाही?
कारण की तो जाऊ शकतो, त्याला सगळे स्वातंत्र्य आहे.
का पप्पा मला
की
का
तो-
स्वातंत्र्य नाहीये?
कारण की तो घराचा हे वंश आहे. तू पुढे वंश थोडी नेणार आहे. उद्या मारशील, पार्टी करशील, उद्या लग्न होईल तर तिथं तर असंच वागशील का? ते कशा
नाही
आम्हाला
पप्पा,
बोलतील?
विश्वास ठेवा माझ्यावर.
नाही, मी नाही ठेवू शकत.
पप्पा प्लीज जाऊ द्या ना,
नाही.
माझ्या सर्व मैत्रिणी बोलवत आहे.
नो.
जाऊ द्या ना पप्पा प्लीज.
नाही.
भाऊला
तसं-
पाठवू शकता, मला का पाठवत नाहीये? दादा प्रत्येक वेळेस त्याच्या मित्रांसोबत जातो,
तो जाऊ शकतो, त्याला स्वातंत्र्य आहे.
प्रत्येक वेळेस जातो पप्पा भाऊ.
कारण की तुमच्यासारखे पार्टी करणारे असले बाहेर किंवा तुमच्यासारखे विचार नसले तर तुमचं हे कोण करल?
भाऊ पण म्हणजे बाहेर जातो, तो पण मुलींची छेड काढत असेल तर ते त्यांना तुम्ही सूट देता, म्हणूनच आमच्यासारख्या मुलींना धोका असतो ना
पण
पप्पा
मला त्याच्यावर
बाहेर.
पूर्ण विश्वास आहे.
नाही पप्पा, त्या दिवशी पण मी भाऊला मुलींची छेड काढताना बघितलं होतं.
मला नाही वाटत.
विचारू शकता पप्पा तुम्ही भाऊला.
आवाज दे, बोलव, त्याला विचारतो.
दादा
हॅलो डॅड, मी बाहेर चाललोय.
तू घरात बस. तू बाहेर जा बाळा. बाळा बाहेर जा.
ओके ओके.
असं काय तू पण म्हणते, तू पण तर एक स्त्री आहेस ना, मग माझी भावना का समजून घेत नाहीस?
तू जायचं नाही बाहेर. तू घरात बस. तू बाहेर जा बाळा. बाहेर जा.
पप्पा आई प्रत्येक वेळेस दादाची साईड घेते.
कारण की ती पण अशीच राहते. ती तिच्या आई वडिलांचं ऐकून माझ्यासोबत तिने लग्न केलेले. तू काय करशील? ती
पप्पा
संस्कारी.
मला का स्वातंत्र्य नाही? मी पण संस्कारी. असं थोडी आहे की जी मुलगी बाहेर जाते ती संस्कारी नाहीये.
पण आजकालचं कल्चर कसं आहे?
पण मुलं तसे वागता म्हणून मुलींना धोका आहे ना पप्पा.
मग त्याच्यामुळेच तर.
पण मुलांनाच का शिकवल्या जात नाही का तुम्ही मुलींची रिस्पेक्ट करा?
कारण की त्यांना माहिती आहे. त्यांना तेवढे संस्कार आहे.
पण मुलींना का एवढं स्वातंत्र्य नाहीये? मुलं बाहेर जाऊ शकता, फिरू शकता, पार्टी करू शकता, मग मुली का नाही? मुली का मागे?
तू बाबांना उलटून बोलायचं नाही.
मम्मी मला माझा हक्क पाहिजे बस.
नाही. नाही
मी
सांगितलं
का
तर
बाहेर
नाही.
जाऊ शकत नाही?
नाही.
मम्मी प्लीज जाऊ दे ना. दादाला का नाही बोलत तुम्ही कुणी?
असं नाही होऊ शकत.
पप्पा प्लीज.
नाही.
पप्पा तुम्ही पण मला समजून घ्या.
आजकाल लोक काय बोलतील मला बाहेर, का तुमची मुलगी पार्टी करती, उधळ्या मारती, रात्री लेट येते घरी, त्याचं काय उत्तर
पप्पा
द्यायचं
असं
मग?
थोडी आहे का जी मुलगी रात्री लेट येते ती संस्कारी नाहीये?
असं थोडी.
दादाला का बोलत नाही कुणी, तू लेट आला, तू रात्रीच्या पार्टी करतो, मुलांमध्ये राहतो, मस्ती करतो, मग मलाच का असं बोलता?
मुलांना कशाला काही पाहिजे स्वातंत्र्य? ते ऑलरेडी आहेच. त्यांना गरज नाही का तुमच्यासारखं आहे. तुला कसं एक घर जपायचंय, उद्या उद्या बाहेर गेल्यानंतर सासरी गेल्यानंतर घर जपायचंय, सगळ्या लोकांना सांभाळून ठेवायचं.
मलाही माझ्या पायावर उभं राहायचंय.
हो, मग
मला
तुला
दुसरं कोणी
तुझ्या-
काही बोलू नये.
हो, तुला तसा सपोर्ट आहे, पण तू पार्टी नाही करू शकत.
का?
नाही करू शकत. एक मुलगी एक हे असते, आपली इज्जत असते.
पण असं थोडी आहे की पार्टी मुलींनी केली तर घरची इज्जत जाते, असं थोडी काही आहे.
बाहेर लोक तर मला बोलतील ना, तुला थोडी काय बोलताय ना का तुमचे संस्कार, तुमच्या मुली काय करताय बाहेर. उद्या कोणी कोण मला बोलू शकतं बाहेर. तुझ्या आईने पार्टी केली का विचार बरं तिला.
नाही. अजिबात नाही. आमच्या वेळेस असं नव्हतं बाई.
आई तू तरी माझ्या भावना समजून घे ना. प्रत्येक वेळेस दादाची साईड घेते आई.
तू तुझ्या बाबांचंच ऐकायचं, मला विचारू नको.
या घरात फक्त माझंच चालत.
पप्पा तुम्ही तरी माझी भावना समजा. दादाला कोणी काही बोलत नाही.
कारण की तो लाडका आहे.
असं का? मुली लाडक्या नसता का? का?
ही कोण आहे?
माझी मैत्रीण.
कोण तुझी मैत्रीण? आता दिसू राहिली. इतके दिवस कुठे होती?
पप्पा
की मुलगा एक वेश बदलून आलाय असं म्हणू शकतो.
पप्पा मुलगीच आहे ती.
हिचे मित्र नसतील?
पप्पा तुम्ही दादाला विचारत नाही तुझे मित्र कोण आहे, त्यांचं बॅकग्राऊंड कधी विचारत तुम्ही? माझ्या मैत्रिणीचं बॅकग्राऊंड का विचारताय? एवढं थोडी इम्पॉर्टंट आहे.
मुलगी ही घराची इज्जत असती. मुलीची काळजी करणं, सगळं विचारपूस करणं हे खूप इम्पॉर्टंट आहे.
पप्पा तुम्ही माझी भावना तरी समजा.
काय तुझी भावना?
की मला पण वाटतं बाहेर जावं, खेळावं, कुदावं, मस्ती
पण तुझं
करावी.
आता हे वय नाही. तुझं आता फक्त शिक्षण करणं.
पप्पा मी अभ्यास करते, मी दादापेक्षा जास्त मार्क्स पाडते.
अहो काका तुम्ही असं काय करता? माझे आई वडील मला कधीच असं म्हणत नाही की जाऊ नको का काय.
असं असतं का?
असं असतं.
असे संस्कार आहे का तुमच्या घरचे?
असं असतं. माझे आई वडील माझ्या भावाला नाही जाऊ देत.
असं
तुमचा
बिघडवलंय
मुलगा आज बाहेर जाऊन
तुझ्यामुळे
मुली
माझी
छेडत असेल.
तुझ्यामुळे माझी मुलगी बिघडू राहिली म्हणून म्हणती ती पार्टीला जायचं. हा तुझ्यामुळे.
पप्पा असं काहीच नाहीये.
बिघडत नाहीये. मी तिला चांगल्या रस्त्यावर आणते. उलट
कोणता चांगला रस्ता?
तुमचा
पार्टीला
मुलगा-
नाही का चांगला रस्ता आहे?
तुमचा मुलगा बाहेर जाऊन काय कुठाने करतो तुम्हाला माहितीये का?
त्याला बघतो मी नंतर. पण आता हे खूप इम्पॉर्टंट आहे.
पण मी हिला आज घेऊन जाणार आहे.
अजिबात नाही. मग तू घरात
मी
यायचं
हिला
नाही परत.
घेऊन जाणार
तू
आहे.
घरात यायचं नाही परत.
पप्पा असं का करता?
अजिबात नाही.
दादाला पण तुम्ही सांगा घरात बस, मी पण घरात बसेल. मग
का बरं? उद्या त्याला बाहेर जाऊन घर सांभाळायचंय. उद्या त्याला मला त्याला काय द्यायचंय, घर
असं का
सांभाळायला
दादा?
द्यायचंय. असं का म्हणजे? तू घर सांभाळणार आहे? तू उद्या
हो.
दुसऱ्या घरी लग्न करून जाणार आहे ना. तू ते घर सांभाळशील ना.
पप्पा असं नाहीये, मी पण माझ्या स्वतःच्या पायावर उभं राहू शकते.
हो पण ते तुझ्या नवऱ्याने सांगितलं.
नाही मला पण माझा हक्क पाहिजे पप्पा. जेवढा हक्क मुलांना आहे तेवढा मुलींना पण हवाय.
हो पण
मग तुम्ही दादालाच का प्रत्येक वेळेस पुढाकार देता?
काका काका मला तुम्हाला काहीतरी सांगायचंय.
हा बोल बेटा.
आज मी दादाला बघितलं होतं तर बाहेर मुलींची छेड काढत होता.
कोणत्या मुलीची?
आज मी दादाला बघितलं तर बाहेर मुलींची छेड काढत होता. त्या माझ्याच मैत्रिणी होत्या. अगं ती नाही का तिचीच. हां 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 ती सुनीता नाही का, तिची छेड काढत होता तो.
मी सुद्धा बघितले, मी तुम्हाला सांगितलं पण तुम्ही माझ्यावर विश्वास नाही ठेवला.